Thank you. Kathy, roll call, please.
Robert Pope,
Present.
Bill Holland,
Present.
Jason Puckett,
Present.
Don Loudon,
Present.
Greg Zuzen.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum, so moving on to consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, including the check register and the prior meeting's minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. Kathy, roll call.
Robert Pope,
4.
Bill Holland,
4.
Jason Puckett,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen.
4.
All right, next up, department updates. Who's going to start us off tonight? John?
Scary up there. Good evening, John Taylor, Economic Development Director. Right now, we have about 5 projects, 5 projects looking at the town. Total about $420 million of real property investment, and one is a 200,000 square foot data center. So I can only guess that the personal property is over $500 million. We have one developer that's come to town wanting to build 20, 30, and 45,000 square foot buildings. And yesterday, or actually Friday, I talked to a gentleman that was looking to come into Avon looking for 20 to 40,000 square feet. And I asked him if he knew these 2 individuals that are building these buildings. He knew both of them. I sent them to him and said, see if you guys can work something out and come back. We'll talk about other things. The biggest one is still the pharmaceutical. It's 1,000 jobs, and the investment's really big. And we're hoping to get them to come to town in June. And if we get that opportunity, we'll ask the council to send a couple of council people to speak with him as we tour the community and look at the site. And then we just, we wait and give the best we can and hope they choose us. Any questions?
No? Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Linda Albrand, Planning Department. I'll start with the comprehensive plan. There's been no steering committee meeting since our last department update a month ago. But staff has taken a deeper dive into the focus areas that I mentioned last time, and we've provided substantial comment back to HWC. So we'll be interested to see what the committee thinks of the focus areas at the next steering committee meeting, which will be April 22nd at 5 p.m. The zoning map has been updated with all of our recent annexations. There's been quite a few, quite a large area of them, and that should be online within about a week. I attended the National Planning Conference in Denver 2 weekends ago, and I'm very appreciative of that. Learned a lot, many thoughts about new methods we could implement, particularly in our GIS functions, to use as a tool rather than just a map maker. Work on our UDO continues. We have one chapter draft ready to go. We're going to get a couple more complete before we start distributing to you for your review. As far as the meetings go, our March Plan Commission had the 3 cases that you're going to hear later on tonight's agenda, and then 2 others, a preliminary plat for Ray Skillman, as well as the Harvest Landing Lot 2 got approved, which is the Ace Hardware, as it's known as. There was no March BZA due to lack of business. The April Plan Commission will have only 1 case, and that's being introduced to you tonight. And then April BZA, we will have 2 cases that have been continued now for 4 months, I believe. Hopefully we'll have some result with those in April. Any questions?
I don't think so. Thanks, Linda.
Good evening, Shelby Pride. Where do you need it? This way? Sorry, apparently I needed a recent, she texted me and said, fix the podium when you go in there. Shelby Pride, Parks and Recreation Director. From a event standpoint, we have sold out our community garden. We are already making plans to double the garden plots for next year. Last year, we started this program. As you know, we had 16 plots. Next year, we're already going to plan for 32 plots, which is amazing. It's very good for us to give back to the community in that way and allow them those spaces to have their little gardens and provide for their families. We are partnering with Duke Energy to fully revamp the community garden location before it officially opens May 10th this year. It just needs some TLC up there after the winter and wet weather that we've had. So we're very excited to have that partnership and have them come in and help us out. And then Avon Farmers Market. Yes, we're looking at the farmers market already. It starts on June 3rd. We are fully booked up with vendors. We have 40 vendors. It's the largest market, one of the largest markets in Hendricks County. Again, we've secured the parking lot at the Hendricks Regional Health facility there. We've secured a total of $3,000 in sponsorships for the market from Hendricks Regional Health and Anderson Renewal. And then we have that reflects a $1,500 increase in sponsorships year over year from last year to this year. On the sports side, spring sports are in full swing. No pun, well, I guess pun intended. Thank you. We have record numbers for spring sports. Our baseball numbers are always our largest throughout the entire year. We're also offering spring flag football. For the first time, we are offering the first all-girls flag football league in Hendricks County. The only other one that we know of is Zionsville. Thank you very much. So it's been really exciting. We've had some conversations with them to be able to play each other and not just have just Avon teams playing Avon. So that's really excited. We're really thankful. Hopefully Indiana weather will get it together before opening weekend this weekend. On the sports side, we got news. We've had the news, but today we shared it publicly that we are the first in Hendricks County to have an all-pro dad chapter. For those of you that don't know, this is supported by Tony Dungy. It is an opportunity for dads or any member. We're not just, it's not just for dads, grandpas, moms, aunts, uncles, anybody can participate to spend quality time with their kids that will strengthen their relationship. It's 1 hour, once a month. We are going to hold this at our indoor facility over on Kingston Street across from Lowe's. We have other, dads and kids can come in. It's fun. It gives them a purpose to connect. It's really exciting that Avon gets to host this. Again, it's at our indoor facility. Information will be on our website soon, but we just publicly put out an email today with more information on it. So we'll post that to our website and social media here soon. I know it's hard to believe, but we have already mowed at the park. If you pulled in and you saw, it was very manicured and the lines look perfect on this hill up here. It's the maintenance staff. Lorenzo just could not wait any longer to get the mowers started. He put the snow plows away and instantly got the mowers out. So want to give them kudos. They look forward to it every year, even though it starts our busy time. They love it. So if you guys are out and about in the park, those public members behind us, just thank the maintenance staff because they are awesome. Any questions? Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Shelby.
Good evening, Sean Stoops, Chief of Police. Our current hiring process is moving forward. What'd she do to that? We anticipate to possibly present 2 candidates to the merit board on Monday for final offers of conditional employment. That meeting is the 14th, Monday at 7 p.m. It's a public meeting, so anyone can attend. We're in the final stages of transitioning into our new pistols and red dot sighting systems, and every officer should be completed and qualified by May. If you recall, this has been over a year now, but because of the supply and demand to some of the equipment that we purchased, it just now came in at the first of the year, so we're about to finally get that completed. So we're excited to have that done. We want to thank all of the volunteers this week that participated in the wet labs for our field sobriety training this week for recertification for all of our officers. Some of you have participated in that and volunteered before. We may still have some videos of that. We won't put those on the website though. I met today with the Central Indiana Veterans Connect. It was a workshop for the Governor's Challenge Grant, and our focus is on providing awareness and services towards identifying veterans in crisis and providing them with the tools and guidance to assist them with intervention and recovery. And that's going to also be extended to first responders as well. So that's kind of how we were brought into that. And there's going to be a lot more information come out on that, but that grant's due by the end of the month. So we're excited to be a part of that, and hopefully we can help in those areas. Met with the Hendricks Regional Health Police Department, a newly formed police department. If you're not aware of that, Chief Wagner hosted a meeting to advise us on the status of the progress of him developing that department, how many officers that he actually had, and what their capabilities are going to be from now until the point when they get their officers trained up. Once their officers are certified through the Law Enforcement Academy, they'll be taking over the majority of the calls at all of the campuses, as well as the satellite locations, such as the ones here in Avon, with the exception of any serious felony cases or investigations that have to be done. And then that will fall upon the agency in that jurisdiction. So happy to have him on board. If you're not aware of Chief Wagner, he's a retired Hendricks County Sheriff's Deputy. He's been around here for a long time, and he's got a lot of good people on that department who are also retired from a lot of agencies around here. So that's going to be a good addition and a good force multiplier in our community when it comes to law enforcement. Next week on the 16th from noon to 6, we are going to be participating in Battle of the Badges. The police department is taking on the fire department in a blood drive at the at Harmony Baptist Church over by Washington Township Park. Now, Chief Brock has already proclaimed victory. And the way this competition is going to go, it's going to be however many donations we can get. Each person that donates gets to vote for the police or for the fire. And I'm just here this evening to kind of put it out there on the line that if you come there and you vote for the police and donate in our favor, you're going to get a free funnel cake and anything else that we can give away. And we're going to have some other things there, some other surprises for kids and for the family as well. So it's all for fun, but of course we do want to beat the fire department, especially after he's already proclaimed victory. So please come on out. Again, those times are from noon to 6 on Wednesday, the 16th. Regardless of who wins the competition, we all win because of the donations of the blood and the shortages that we have facing us in the health industry today. So please come out and donate if you're available to do that. Even if you can't donate, come out. If you want to help, if you want to come out and cook funnel cakes, come on out. We'd be happy to have you. So please come out and donate. You should have the monthly stats in front of you as well. Not really any huge differences in our averages there, but if you'd like to ask any questions regarding those, be happy to answer those at this time.
Questions? No? If
Thank
not,
you.
Thanks, Sean.
Dawn, I'm going to do the Public Works report.
Okay.
As you guys know, Steve's about the hardest working person in the world. He works 60 to 65-hour weeks, and he had the opportunity to go to a Pacers game tonight. So I told him to go, and he didn't want to because he wanted to give you guys this report, which I said was ridiculous. So I'm going to do it for him. It is 2 pages, so it'll be a little bit. Accident reimbursement, they did receive payment for $31,834.19 from insurance for people who got in accidents resulting in damage to town property. He said thank you to Betsy and Avon PD for doing a great job of getting the accident information so that we can file claims and get that reimbursed. He did say, unfortunately, we had a pedestrian signal at the southwest corner of Reagan and 100 North that was just recently repaired, and it was hit again. So thank you, bad drivers. Spring cleanup. This time of year, we always start doing our spring cleanup. So we'll start cleaning trails. Some of you may see we're out street sweeping. I saw them in my neighborhood today. We also have heavy trash this Saturday, which is one of the most popular events here in Avon. People love it. April 12th from 9 to 1 p.m. at Gable Park at the Salt Barn behind Aldi's. It is only for town residents, so if you don't live in town, I'm sorry, you don't pay for that event, so you don't get to participate. If you'd like to, we're happy to get you an annexation petition. 2024-1, our community crossing paving project is completed, and so Steve wanted to pass that on. The 2025 paving project is actually out to bid right now, as you guys are aware. The town received a $1.5 million grant, so it's about $3 million worth of paving. Our normal paving budget for the year is normally about $900,000. So that grant from NDOT and from the state helps us do much more paving in our community. Steve gave a ton of segments here. I'm not going to read them all. 625 Valleywood to Yellow Birch, 900 East in front of Stony Meadow, 100 North at Avon Avenue intersection and approaches, Kingston Street, 200 North from Ronald Reagan to Persimmon Grove, Avon Avenue. I think you guys are aware we're doing some improvements from Avon Avenue from Maple Drive to 25 South, which is the roundabout, putting in some medians and doing some additional lanes. That's all part of it. Repaving the roundabout at 625 and 150 South. Paving on Red Oak Drive from 100 South to Timber Climb. Princess Lane, Avon Avenue to London Lane. And a whole bunch more. I won't read them all. That's, if you want, I think we've got it online as well if you want to see some of the other locations. 100 North and the Raceway Road roundabout. We are working to try to get that out to bid here in May or June. We've closed on 3 of the 6 right-of-way parcels we need. So if we can get those last 3 wrapped up here in the next month or so, we'll get that out to bid. Our goal is for construction to start in August. We would wrap up by mid October and get it done. It will be a full closure. Likewise, County Road 900 East at Angelina Way roundabout. We've got a couple parcels in condemnation. We got 1 resolved. We're hoping to get the 2nd resolved. That project has been delayed for a year as a result of not being able to acquire right away. So we are also hopeful to get that started. Similar timeline. It's not quite as big of a project as the 100 North and Raceway roundabout. So it'll have a 60-day closure, and we're hoping to get that done here before the end of the year as well. The 2nd parcel has been settled. Our town attorney just shared with me. So yay, that means we can get utilities going and get that started. So that's exciting. ADA, as you guys know, Steve has been doing an update to the ADA plan. They had a 2nd open house on March 26th. He said they did have a handful of people who attended. And so they should be able to finalize the ADA pedestrian generator map for the town, which will become part of our bike and ped master plan. Stormwater utility, if you guys don't know, for a long time, we've had some issues with the Pines of Avon drainage ponds staging and causing flooding. GRW and Steve have been working to come up with a solution to that problem. We do have a design. Some utilities have started relocating, and so we're planning on starting that work hopefully this summer as well, if we can get all the utilities relocated. A couple more, sorry. Potholes, 18 tons of asphalt patch and potholes around town. Keaton and Eli have patched 30 potholes using nearly 1 ton of cold patch. Drew and Eli have completed 112 MS4 inspections. This is actually really surprising. I just noticed he said no fines were assessed. That's shocking because normally we have all kinds of problems and we have to find people, unfortunately, but that means we're getting good compliance from our developers. So thank you to our development community for doing that. Eli and Keaton installed 41 traffic street signs. Betsy issued 8 right-of-way permits, collecting $2,406 in permit fees, and Keaton and Eli conducted 18 right-of-way inspections.
Jeez.
a lot going on.
I do have a question. There are signs out now on US 36, construction coming, maybe some closures. Do you know what's going on?
I know that, I'm not sure which signs specifically you're talking about. Are they east of Raceway?
Well, no.
No, it's
west
more
of
into
Raceway,
town?
yeah.
Well, I'm not sure what that is, then I'll have to look into it. I know that east of Raceway, NDOT, there's utility relocations going on for, they're not calling it phase 2, it has a fancy name in Marion County, but the piece from Raceway all the way to 465, they're doing utility relocations and construction on taking that to 6 lanes is supposed to happen next year. So I know they're having some lane restrictions there. I know there's some people putting in fiber optics. You know, those guys are always tearing stuff up along 36. So it may be something like that, that they may just be doing something little. But other than that, we've not heard anything from NDOT about something that they're doing.
And then lastly, pothole patching on 36. They're starting to resurface again. Is there any word on what NDOT's going to be doing?
I haven't heard anything other than I think Steve reported to you guys last month that NDOT said they were going to temp patch them, and then here when the weather got better and they could get hot mix, they were going to come back and clean it up. But I haven't seen them at all. So I think asphalt plants are starting to open up, so we're starting to get some hot mix. So hopefully here shortly they'll patch it up.
Thank you.
On the town's website, you have an option, people have an option to report signs down or something. How long does it normally take for the town to repair anything that is reported? How often do you look at it?
I mean, we look at it daily, so it may depend. I mean, if it's just like a stop sign is knocked down, typically those, if we can put them right back in the same place, we may do them within 24 hours. If it's a sign, like the sign itself is damaged and we have to order a new sign, it may take a little longer, like a street sign. Typically, I'd say probably it's reasonable a week or less. A stop sign is a liability, so typically those get resolved in 24 hours. Other signs, if it was just a warning sign or a no parking sign or a street sign, that may take a week, or if they have to order a sign, sometimes it takes us 2 weeks to get the sign. But again, normally pretty quickly we would get them up.
I'll talk to you after.
Okay.
About one that has been out
It's been out there? Okay. Yep. We could have missed it. So
And there is a school sign down over on Dan Jones, just north of
Okay.
100 North,
okay.
on the west side of the road. Is that all the department updates? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. The public may comment on items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing or on a specific matter within the council's jurisdiction. Those wishing to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and your time is limited to 3 minutes. Also, you'll want to press the button. If it's red on the microphone, you'll want to press it to green.
It's green.
Good, somebody didn't turn it off.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kurt Vapor. My address is 4927 Silver Bell Drive in Plainfield. That's Plainfield's Del Webb Retirement Community developed by Pulte Homes. We own 49 acres adjoining the Whispering Pine South development. Our daughter and her family live there. It's the 5th generation of our family there since 1884. The last 3 months are my first experience with any kind of a zoning question. We've attended all the meetings. We've commented as best we could. We tried to learn and understand the process and be both fair and open-minded. I sent each of you our thoughts on the proposal. There's too much to cover in 2 or 3 minutes, so I just put it in a note. I hope you had a chance to read the note. But in a nutshell, it's not clear how this proposal changed from rejected to recommended with so little accommodation by the petitioner, with so much public objection to the proposal, and with the absence of a compelling reason to make a zoning change. My family has been good Avon citizens since 1884. We've supported Avon history, development, and growth on several occasions, and now we're being damaged by a zoning change being made for no compelling reason. Please reject this proposal. Please lead from the perspective of we can do better rather than the perspective of it could be worse. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Ken Owen. I live at 6145 White Alder Court in Timber Bend in Avon, and thank you for those comments. I would just echo what he said, and the commitment dating back to 2003, I'll quote Webster's dictionary, a commitment is an act of committing, pledging, or engaging in something or the state of being committed. It can also be described as a promise, or an obligation. I was born and raised in Chicago. I've lived in Indianapolis. I've lived in Asheville, North Carolina. Avon is getting near the end of its run in terms of open land. As we know, this place has changed quite a bit. And I guess having higher density, having, smaller homes, more of a cracker box palace environment at this stage of our development is probably, in my view, not the right way to go. So I would echo this gentleman's statement and ask you to reconsider this change. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Harrington. My wife Betty and I live at 2141 Laurel Leaf in Timber Bend. And I'd like to begin by thanking you for the hard work that I know you do. You're always thinking about the best long-term interest of Avon because every decision like this you make affects, in this circumstance, what people are going to see for decades, maybe a century. People have been driving down 625 for all these years and enjoying this beautiful open piece of land, some of the very little farmland still left in our community. And we know it's not going to be that way forever. I mean, unless the town decides to buy it and make it a park. But we know what's allowed there now. And you're very familiar with the 5 statutory factors that you have to consider, 3 of which I think are probably most important here. Is this proposal the most desirable use for which this land can be adapted? Will this proposal conserve the property values throughout the jurisdiction? And maybe most importantly, is this responsible development and growth? I share the concern of Mr. Vapor that one of the things I learned during the Plan Commission process is apparently there is no such thing as a commitment. How about coming to this town and saying, we want to do the best we can for Avon. We're not here just because we want to profiteer and make as much money off this land as we can. Avon deserves, particularly on this very special piece of property, the best that any developer could bring. Nope. They started off lowballing you, and then they started adding on more and adding on more, and now they're still at a compromise because they're not willing to meet the commitments that were made back in 2003. Pulte is a compromise for this town. Look at the reviews online. Hear from the people who buy their homes. They're horrible reviews. This is a unique property that deserves your very special attention because there aren't that many places left like this. I agree with Mr. Vapor that Avon can do better. Is a neighborhood like this in the location where it is what you want to leave as the legacy from your time on this council? I submit to you that this is not the most desirable use. There is a risk of compromising property values, and it's not the most responsible development. Wait until somebody makes you an offer that just knocks your socks off. This ain't it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Logan. I'm at 1764 Water Oak Way, and that is adjacent to the very special property we are discussing that Pulte would like to rezone I'm not a public speaker, so I'm just going to read from what I wrote out today, so bear with me. I also have braces, and sometimes I slur my words. It's embarrassing. All right, so I'd like to talk about investments. Is the proposed Pulte development going to be an investment for Avon's future? In my opinion, that answer is no. I live on the stretch of property adjacent to what we're talking about. This parcel was committed, this town committed to being a positive investment for Avon's future. The promise was a transition from Timber Bend to Whispering Pines. At no point was the intention for this property to be an extension of Whispering Pines. It was promised to be a transition from Timber Bend, not to Whispering Pines, lower or lesser zoned home or section of their neighborhood. I'd also like to point out that I'm not getting paid to be up here. I'm invested in Avon. Every single supporter of this reduction in value is paid to have that opinion. Every single one. As a homeowner, I invest in this location. I invest in Avon. I live in Avon. My kids go to school here. I used to vacation here before I moved here. I would come here for your beautiful parks, and I thought, this is where I want my babies to live, and I moved here. I do not get paid to be here. I am invested here. I'd like to talk a little bit about the landscaping as one of the points that Pulte is not giving us what that land deserves. They're just saying, well, we'll not make it worse. The landscape. I can't help but notice that I have invested more in the landscape on my one property than what they're committing to invest on all 32 acres. The tree line that they're acting like they're blessing us with is just a ramshackle line of raggedy bushes and trees that happen to have grown up. It's nothing more than a windbreak. It's not landscaping. And we're supposed to say thank you for what's already there. I spend more money on my landscaping than what they're going to do for this entire property. That's embarrassing. Investment in responsible growth. Is removing one of the very few R1 zones an investment for Avon? Does this meet your diversity goal by having no diversity in R1 and only having low-tier zoning? No, it does not. Invested in construction. I'm always investing in my home. I'm a homeowner. I'm always doing construction. We had a big project, and I hired a local contractor who lives down the street from this property to do A+ work. One of my kids will probably take the house from me. I will leave it to them. That room will be just as wonderful 20 years from now as it was when he finished. After the February meeting, the Pulte representative out in the hallway admitted to the truthfulness of the Pulte online complaints and said, nobody did quality work in 2020. I don't want to say that's a lie because my local Avon guy did wonderful work, and we deserve better for that property. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brendan Kluzinski. I live at 1802 Willow Bend Court in the Timber Bend neighborhood. I work at Hendricks Regional Health as a physician. I moved out here in 2006, and I want to thank this gentleman for his property because it is right behind my property. And it is 90% of the reason I bought my home. And I just want to speak to a few things that perhaps others haven't, and that is the wildlife. All right. I look out my back window and I see deer and wild turkey. I see kingfishers. I see red-headed woodpeckers. It's a beautiful piece of land, right? And so we have to speak for the wildlife. I'm not a tree hugger, so to speak, but I think someone has to recognize that. The next thing I can see, particularly after 7 inches of rain, is White Lick Creek. And when it swells good. And the banks of White Lick Creek are changing. And I can only imagine what high volume homes are going to do to the volume of White Lick Creek. I'm not an engineer, but I have seen that creek change in the 20 years I have been here. And the last thing I want to speak to is 625. I take that road to the hospital every day. I decide to turn left or turn right based upon how much coffee I have and how long I want to drag my feet getting to work. When they put that Murphy Park in, there's a lot of traffic. When they put that speed table in, that slows it down, right? And so I'm concerned about public safety. I'm concerned about the traffic that's going through there. You've got water problems by the ball diamonds. If I choose to go right, I end up at this seemingly four-way stop that takes forever to get through. And if I have to turn right, I better hope there's not somebody there. So there's a big problem with moving traffic. So for me, it's wildlife, water, and traffic. These are things that I see every day and I think bear consideration. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Troy Petrick. This is my wife, Crystal. We are I guess, the newest owners in Timber Bend. We just bought a house, the last one we built, and 1812 Water Oak Way. I'm sorry, I should have said that. So this subdivision, unfortunately, be right behind where we just bought a house in December. And I got to tell you, this picture is so funny because that's what the lane that looks like that goes back to your place. We fell in love with that, and then we heard about all this. We've been to all the meetings. And someone talked about commitments. I would add to the word commitment, I would add the word wisdom. People 20 years ago said this piece of land, if we're going to do something with it, okay, we're not going to stop progress, but there are rules that let's have it fit in. And what's happening, what's been proposed, I think somebody mentioned there's no compelling reason to change it. We had an agreement. If we're going to do it, let's try to maintain that as much as we can. You've got people that have been there for over 100 years, they're going to be squeezed from the road back to their property by, and I don't want the Pulte guys here, and progress is progress, but there'll be 5 different models. They're going to be sandwiched in there. We've seen the drawing. It's dreadful. It's certainly not this, So I would just say commitments were made. There's some wisdom there. If we want Avon to be what Shelby's trying to build with all the stuff she does, that's the future. And don't let them come in and do this to what we've been trying to preserve for, I guess, 20 years through an agreement. So I just appreciate you guys making them do what they said they were going to do 20 years ago. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Amy Stirwell. I live at 6052 White Ash Court in Timber Bend. And like others have said, I just want to reiterate about the traffic and the safety. That's my number one concern. I have young children and it's already hard to turn left out of Timber Bend. I can't imagine with 200 more cars flying down 625, which they don't go the speed limit. That's another thing we could enforce. But I just want to get up here and say, I feel like if we kept the zoning how it is, that would be fewer homes and less traffic and better for everyone down 625 and the safety. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ryan Gores. I live on 1796 Willow Bend Court here in Avon. I would, I would like to say to keep the zoning as it is. We're looking around at the surrounding properties to keep it as cohesive as possible. It will continue between all the neighborhoods around. If we're going to be going into the R2, putting in condominiums and townhomes, potential duplexes, I would look at the quality that they would be put in compared to the surrounding properties, as well as the history of that property as well. There's a big plaque out front that says it was one of the first pioneerings to nitrogenate the soil in there. So there's also the history behind the piece of land itself. To train that into an engineered cookie cutter homes, seeing what the property used to be and what it can be, I just suggest to and compel to look at what it can be, like all the predecessors before me said, what can best preserve the area. Thank you.
Kathy, did you get his last name? Ryan, could you say your last name again for the record? Gorse. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with no one else coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the session of public comment and continue on with council comment and liaison reports. Bill, we'll start on your end tonight.
I have nothing, thank you.
Right?
I have nothing.
Jason?
Attended the library board meeting Monday. Other than that, I don't have anything new.
Robert?
Stormwater Board met yesterday, along with the monthly invoices. They did pass a resolution adopting a collections policy, and it should head to us for final adoption soon. That's all I got.
Thank you. And I have nothing to report. We'll move on to new business, which is going to start with the introduction of the Beechwood townhomes.
Good evening, Steve Brehab, Banning Engineering. I feel like I live at 853 Columbia Road in Plainfield, Indiana, 46168. Coming to you this evening to do an introduction for the Beechwood Townhomes project. This is a project proposed to be completed by David Weekley Homes. I don't know.
You put it over here, don't put it up there. Put it over here.
Oh.
See if it moves for you.
Steve, don't listen to Ryan.
Is it on?
I don't know, I can't tell.
There you go.
All right,
Point it right there.
and point it at Ryan, right? Oh, all right.
Right there, at that box.
All right, I'll do it manual.
All right.
All right, we'll just go, we'll just say next. How about that? So David Weekley Homes, a little bit about them. They've been in business since '76. They came to the Indianapolis market area in 2011 and have subsequently built about 1,000 homes. This is a new venture for them in the Avon area. Go ahead and currently they're in the Portland area, Arizona, Utah, Denver, Texas, the Southeast, up in Minnesota, and in Indianapolis. As I said, they came to Indianapolis in 2011. So this is where the site's located. It is north of US 36 and between Avon Avenue and Dan Jones. Go to the next slide. More particularly, it's tucked in and hidden behind the Rural King. It is accessed by Beechwood Center Drive at a signalized intersection off of US 36. So looking at the 2017 comprehensive plan land use map, this area it's kind of hard to see. If I could point right there, that little circle is identified as innovation. So next slide, please. If you look at what innovation was, the 2017 comp plan thought that this site should be developed for healthcare and wellness. It identified innovation as locations along the US 36 and Dan Jones corridor. Jobs, providing high-paying jobs, projects that might do research and development, things like that. Next slide, please. But that hasn't happened. And I think for various reasons, one of which is the site has zero visibility. The site's current zoning is commercial, and it's not been developed commercial. Again, for that same reason, it has zero visibility. So the 2025 comp plan update, again, identifies this. 2025 comp plan update identifies this area now as multifamily. And I think multifamily type use is probably a little more reasonable for this site. It's obviously not going to develop as commercial. It's not going to develop as innovation. And the multifamily identified on the 2025 comp plan update provides a transition buffer between the commercial area, Rural King, Beechwood Center to the south, and the existing single-family residential area to the north. So I think that this comp plan update does a really good job in identifying a viable use for this piece of property. Next slide, please. So what David Weekly Homes is proposing is a townhome project. So the site here would have road access out to Beechwood Center Drive. We're showing conceptually on this site 72 townhomes, I believe. And it is a mixture of front-loaded townhomes and alley-loaded townhomes. The alley-loaded townhomes are here along Beechwood Center Drive and fronting Beechwood Center Drive. And then the front-loaded townhomes are internal to the project. There's an existing tree line bisecting the site north to south that we're trying to save the majority of. And there's a little pocket park in the center area here. So right now we're proposing this would be a public roadway. This would be a public roadway. This would be a public roadway. And per Town of Avon requirements, this alley would be a private alley. So it would be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. There's an existing pond here, which is the stormwater detention area for this neighborhood to the north. And this site right here also has drainage rights to that pond. We'll have to do some work on that to bring it up to current code requirements, but it was sized to handle this site as well. Next slide, please. So zooming in a little bit closer, again, access road here on the south end, public road here, and then an alley connection out to Beechwood Center Drive. This alley connection would provide a secondary means of ingress and egress. Thing that's a little bit peculiar about this site is most undeveloped sites adjacent to residential have a road stub to them. I don't think this one ever had a road stub contemplated because it was always thought that this would develop as commercial, probably as part of the Beechwood Center to the south. So with detention pond on one side, service area behind Rural King on the south side, single family residential to the north. The access point is Beechwood Center Drive, and there's no other connection points. We have went to TAC on this a couple weeks ago, got some comments. Some of the comments were these dead end road stubs. They're very short. They're only 116 feet in length. Maximum length for a dead end for emergency service vehicle is 150 foot, but we still wanted to provide a way if a vehicle came down here for it to turn around. So we worked with Levi Carpenter and Steve Moore to come up with a hammerhead turn that's been used at most recently the project just north of Costco, where there are a couple other dead end stubs. So that's all I have for you this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, my question is, how does the town, if you got a private alleyway there, I mean, we basically plow everything except for that alleyway in the wintertime.
That would be the case.
It's almost like it's
owner
an
would be
odd duck.
the owner would be responsible for plowing the alleyway and keeping that clear and maintained.
Including behind those, down that long strip? Are those rear facing?
So the only alley is right here. Is this part. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I should be doing it on that one.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the alley. All of the rest of these are public streets.
Mhm. So you guys would clear from the cul-de-sac type area
Yes.
there over so that there is the
Yeah.
full access out.
So
to
they
Richmond.
would plow and maintain and keep this clear, as well as the kind of north-south angled alley there.
Do you have any concept drawings?
Oh, I do. I forgot. I'm glad you asked that. Again, these are just conceptual at this point to give you an idea of mass, not so much building material or colors or anything like that, but these would be the alley-loaded townhomes that front on Beechwood Center Drive. You can see there's different gables along the front, different pitches on the roof, modulation so that the units step back. It's not just a flat front all the way across. I know that David Weekley Homes is still developing this unit and what the colors are going to be, but the materials are going to be stone, brick, hardy plank type materials. It's not vinyl sided, and it's not going to be, one material from ground up to the roof. Next slide. So then this is, again, conceptual in nature, but again, to show you the massing of the front-loaded project. So they have individual 2-car garages and then individual entries. And again, a lot of modulation of the units and different pitches on the roof.
Are these going to be owner occupied or rentals?
Owner occupied. Yes, we'll actually go through a platting process, and each one will be on its own lot in accordance with the R4 zoning standards.
Is it a PUD? Is it HPR then, or?
No, it would be a rezone to R4, but not a PUD.
Okay.
R4 allows attached single family.
Your emergency access drive, is that a gated access then?
I don't think it has to be. I think it's really up to the town. It functions like a driveway. And I think if you could you go back a couple slides? I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of people going in and out of it. If I'm down here, it's not convenient for me to go out that way. It's probably only convenient for maybe people, the northern half of this unit and the northern half of this to ever go out that drive. It wouldn't make any sense for this guy to come down, loop around, and then continue on south.
Because if our UDO, if there's anything over 49 units, then you need 2 access points, right?
Yes, I understand that. So this would require a waiver. But I would also add.
Why I'm asking, why would it be an emergency access? It should just be your secondary.
It could be
access.
secondary access, yeah. And when we had originally approached this with Levi Carpenter, we thought that he would want a gate, but he said it didn't matter to him as long as the pavement was designed to handle the weight of the fire trucks, it was fine.
Talk about the buffer between the residents of Beechwood Farms.
So when we laid this site out, we've actually got a 25-foot wide buffer. Oh, shoot. I actually have a 25-foot wide buffer all the way around the perimeter of the site. So along the south, along the west, and along the north. We could shift the development one way or another if we wanted more buffer on the north side than the south side. But this was our initial stab at laying the site out, so we just provided the same buffer depth on both sides.
Have you had any conversations with our homeowners association?
We actually have a neighborhood meeting with them. We sent notices to, I don't remember the number, but quite a few people. Basically everybody that would receive notice eventually at the Plan Commission hearing, because we wanted to get their opinion on the project and get their comments before we actually came to the Plan Commission. And I believe that meeting is Monday night at the Washington Township Library, if anyone would like to attend.
Thank you.
There have been other developments proposed for that parcel, and we have heard from the Beechwood residents in the past. And I think their opposition at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robert and Greg, because you were here, it was more of a rental neighborhood, not for sale or owner occupied type things. I don't know that they were opposed to residential going in there.
Yeah. We kind of followed that at the time. There was kind of a trend on that build for rent type project. And we were kind of interested to see what would happen because we were getting a lot of inquiries of that. And that was kind of my sentiment as well, was it was not that it was residential, it was that it was residential for rent.
Right. I'm trying to remember, and do you guys remember if it was about density or anything like that?
I don't recall.
No? Okay. What time is the meeting on Monday?
Oh. I'm going to say 6.
Okay.
I'd be happy to email everybody tomorrow in case I did give you the wrong time.
Okay. And that's at the Washington Township Library? Yes. Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I guess we will consider it introduced.
Thank you. I appreciate your time this evening.
Next is authorization to purchase police vehicles.
You should have had in your packet a request to purchase an unmarked, non-customary police vehicle. This is a request for our intelligence analyst. If you recall, we hired an intelligence analyst last year, and she has been instrumental in not only helping support our investigations, but as well as other agencies, including the drug task force that we're partnered with the Brownsburg Police Department. Back in 2020, we entered into a partnership with the United States Drug Enforcement Agency called the Equitable Share Program. And the Equitable Share Program allows us to acquire a certain percentage of seizures and forfeitures related to those drug arrests and convictions and forfeitures. So it's a very small percentage, but over time we've accumulated about $118,000. And there are some certain restrictions on what we can and can't use that money for, and it also can't be used to supplant our current budget as well. But what we can use it for is for vehicles. Currently, our intel analyst is driving my old car that I used to drive a while back, so it's got a few thousand miles on it. She uses it to transport computer equipment and other investigative equipment. She also responds to crime scenes to help with on-scene crime analyst duties. And she also takes that vehicle on call outs directly from her home and so forth. The vehicle that we're looking at, it's a Chevy Trailblazer. We did acquire 3 quotes. We found the cheapest quote to be the one from Champion Chevy. And we would ask that if we could get approval for that this evening to make that purchase. It's on the lot, it's in stock. We don't have to order it. We can literally go down and pick it up. So we would ask that the council would approve that purchase tonight from the Equitable Share account in the amount of $34,847.83, and allow the clerk treasurer to issue that check at her convenience. I'd be happy to answer any other questions surrounding that if you have any.
What's gonna happen to the current vehicle?
It will be a pool vehicle. It's an unmarked vehicle, so it will go into the pool for the investigators as a spare vehicle. I did take care of it. It's just old, like me.
Just checking.
Yeah. We can't afford to give any more vehicles up right now.
I thought you'd come back next meeting for a surplus property release or something.
Yeah, no, not for that one. That one we'll actually keep for a while, I think, unless something goes wrong with it.
I think the other thing that's important here is this is money from the United States Department of Enforcement Agency from arrests and if you want to use drug money or whatever the situation may be. So it's really not coming out of our budget. It's funds that we were able to get from participating in those activities.
That's correct. And I think it's also important to make note that we could certainly spend that money on other types of vehicles, but we feel like the optics of this is also important. And it also needs to, we feel like it needs to stay with the unit that's responsible for helping to get these funds. And Candace, our intel analyst, as well as our former drug enforcement and interdiction officers were the ones that actually put in the time and the effort so that we were able to get this percentage of that money. And we feel like it's a good way to kind of pay back to them. You know, if she needs a new vehicle, what better way to get her a new vehicle than with the drug money that we took from drug dealers during all of those investigations.
My only other comment is on the one quote, the lowest one, what's this 1,000 NCC? What does that mean? Is that supposed to be a deduction or? It's underneath the discount column, but it's not incorporated into the overall calculation. And one other thing, just for everybody's information, of the two other bids, they both had taxes in there and were tax exempt. The one that you're recommending has it as tax exempt. So.
Does that make a difference in the figures?
No, I did that calculation. It still doesn't beat it.
I still think that the original quote was cheaper. And plus that vehicle is actually on the lot ready to be picked up. I think that's kind of huge at this point too. We don't have to wait and order it. As for the 1,000 NCC, I don't know. We know how car dealers are. Hope there's none here tonight. Don't mean to offend them, but I'm not sure what that discounted rate. That could have something to do with the bids, state bid process too. Could be something that they've subtract from there. The
Sean,
big thing is it's a subtraction, not an addition. So
You mentioned it's unmarked. Normally, when we're purchasing police vehicles, we're also taking into consideration the equipment that goes into it. Will there be any additional equipment that
this
needs to be applied
will
to it?
have no additional equipment such as lights and sirens and things of that nature because of her position is not a police officer's position. It's a civilian position.
This is essentially it.
It's a small SUV to haul around all the equipment that she takes from place to place when she goes to assist on investigations.
Thanks, Sean.
Any other questions? If not, can we get a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 2025 Chevy Blazer LT at a purchase price not to exceed $34,847.83 from Champion Chevrolet, and for the clerk treasurer to issue a check to make that purchase.
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, could you take roll call, please?
Robert Pope,
4.
Bill Holland,
4.
Jason Puckett,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to final reading of ordinance 2025-09, the Whispering Pines zoning amendment 24-11. Paul?
Okay, can you make it show up here? Thank you, President Loud and members of the council. As you're probably aware at this point, ordinances 2025-09 and 10 are both related. They go hand in hand with what the petitioner is proposing to develop on Whispering Pines South. Ordinance 09 is a request for approval of zoning map amendment, rezoning from R1 to R2, and ordinance 10 is a request to modify written commitments from when the property was originally rezoned back in the early 2000s when it was under the jurisdiction of Hendricks County. I don't have the magic. Next slide, please. Next slide. We don't need to go through all that. As you're probably aware, the property is located at the southwest corner of 625 and 150 South, where 150 going west from 625 becomes Whispering Pines Boulevard, going into the existing Whispering Pines subdivision. The legal description that was submitted with the request to rezone and modify commitments is a little over 32 acres. The commitments that apply to this Whispering Pines South was originally 40 acres. It's been reduced in part due to part of it being where the Whispering Pines Boulevard entrance is, the pool, clubhouse, existing detention pond for the existing Whispering Pines encroached into what was originally described as the south 40 acres. And I believe there were a couple pieces that were also deeded off to the property owner to the west. So that's close to 8 acres that kind of is no longer available to be developed as the south 40 acres, or Whispering Pines South as we're calling it now. It is currently zoned R1. Both of these petitions were approved by the Plan Commission at their March hearing by unanimous vote. Next slide, please. This is the most recent site plan that was submitted back in mid-February, shortly before the February Plan Commission. Just as a little bit of background, the Plan Commission originally heard this in January. The request was different then. There was in addition to reducing the lot area and lot width for the proposed lots, they also had proposed to increase the maximum number of lots from 64 to 71. So at that time in January, staff was recommending denial of the request. It was continued to February. It was heard again in February. There were changes made shortly before the February hearing. The commission wasn't comfortable with the amount of time between the changes being submitted and that public hearing. So they again continued it to March. And at the March hearing, staff recommended approval of both requests, and both requests were approved by the Plan Commission. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more history, just in case anybody's not aware. So this site was originally rezoned along with the 80 acres to the north, which was referred to in the commitments as the north 80 acres. That was developed as the existing Whispering Pines neighborhood. It was always intended that this site would also develop residentially as part of Whispering Pines. But before it ended up developing, it was sold to the school corporation, I believe in 2007. And they've owned it ever since. I believe they intended at some point to build an elementary school there. It's my understanding now that they don't have that need, so they've decided to sell the property. In comes Pulte Homes with an agreement to purchase the property, and they filed the zoning map amendment and request to modify commitments to be able to do the development that they're proposing. On this chart here, the top table shows you the difference between the R1 and R2 standards. Again, the property is zoned R1 now, which has a minimum 90-foot lot width and 15,000 square foot lot size. R2, which they're rezoning to, has an 80-foot minimum lot width and 12,500 square foot lot size. Because of the commitments that are in effect, the commitments right now that were agreed to back in the early 2000s, those actually have higher standards for both lot width and lot size. So if you take a look at the middle chart or table, and if you kind of picture this, the lines there going from north to south, just like they would on the map, you have the existing Whispering Pines. The existing Whispering Pines neighborhood is at the top line, where you have 85-foot lot widths and 12,500 foot minimum lot size. And then at the bottom, you have Timber Bend, which has a typical 125-foot minimum lot width and 20,000 square foot lot size. In that middle table there, what it's showing you is what's currently in effect with those existing commitments, that all of the lots would have to be at least 100 foot wide and 15,000 square feet. But the lots along the south line the south perimeter, which would be adjacent to Timber Bend, they're required 120-foot lot width and 18,000 square foot lot size. So now moving down to the bottom table, this gives us a comparison of what's now proposed. So the Whispering Pines and Timber Bend lines are still the same because that's what's existing out there. But in between is what I've labeled as subject site interior. When this was initially filed, Pulte proposed a minimum 80-foot lot width for the majority of the site and then 100 feet along the south line. Most importantly, in staff's consideration, is that they were also requesting to modify the commitment that only allowed a maximum of 64 lots, and they were looking to go to 71 lots. So when we evaluated that ahead of the initial Plan Commission hearing, we didn't think there was any compelling reason to increase the amount of homes that would go on this essentially 40 acres as it was originally planned. Subsequent to that, Pulte came back and modified their request. Again, not shown here, but very important in our consideration is that they withdrew the request to increase from 64 to 71 lots. And then in so doing, they made the increases that you see on the bottom table, where the interior lots would have an 85-foot lot width and a slightly larger lot size at 12,750, which would be equal to or slightly greater than the existing Whispering Pines to the north. They also increased the width of the lots along the south perimeter adjacent to Timber Bend to 110-foot width and 16,500 square foot lot size. So in staff's evaluation, we found that at this point, it would still provide a logical transition from north to south, from the relatively smaller lots in Whispering Pines to the larger lots in Timber Bend. Next slide, please. So as you're aware, in reviewing a zoning map amendment or rezoning request, state statute lays out 5 criteria that must be adhered to. 1, the comprehensive plan. 2, the current condition and characters of the structures in the district. 3, the most desirable use for which the land is adapted. 4, conservation of property values. And 5, responsible development and growth. Next slide, please. So with regard to the first criteria, comprehensive plan, the future land use cluster map in the comprehensive plan does not provide a specific recommendation for this site. And without a nearby cluster recommendation on that map that we could possibly extend to this site, the comp plan indicates that the underlying zoning district denotes the desired land uses. Therefore, it could be said that the best interpretation of the comp plan is that it supports the existing R1 zoning of the site. However, in our evaluation of it, we found that an R2 zoning limited to only 64 lots and a density much closer to R1, because even just looking at this as the 32 acres that have been filed in the legal description, just over 32 acres, 64 lots equals just a smidge under 2 units per acre. The maximum allowed in R1 is 1.8 units per acre. If this were R2 without any commitments or restrictions, it allows up to 3 units per acre. So we find that rezoning this to R2 with obviously some modification to the commitments, but still having commitments that require larger lot size and larger lot width than would be permitted under R2 without commitments, and limiting the number of lots to 64 as originally intended more than 2 decades ago would be consistent with what was intended back then, and we would find it to be a minor deviation from the existing R1 zoning. As far as the current character of the structures and uses in the district, again, we find that the proposed R2 zoning, limiting the density with the proposed commitments, would still provide that logical transition from the smaller lots to the north to the larger lots to the south. We find that the most desirable use for this land would be single-family residential, given that that's what surrounds it on 3 sides, with the vapor farm to the west. Next slide, please. And we don't see any reason that the proposed R2 zoning, again limited by the proposed commitments, would have a negative impact on property values, because it would provide a transition from north to south, most notably having the 110-foot lots along the south line adjacent to Timber Bend. And then finally, the fifth criteria, going back to what was originally intended was to have 64 lots on this south 40 acres. That other close to 8 acres that I mentioned that's come off the plan, Suzanne, if you could go back a couple slides to the site plan. Thank you. So those areas, it's basically the northwest corner again, where you see the existing amenities and pond for the existing Whispering Pines, and then the additional proposed pond that Pulte is proposing and the green space around that. All of that extra 8 acres that's not now included in the original South 40 acres, it's not developed with additional homes, and it will not be able to be developed with additional homes. So if this is approved, what we will still see is 64 lots on that original South 40 acres, albeit those homes will be a little bit more clustered onto the developable portion of the site. So for that reason, we do find that it would be responsible growth and development to approve this proposal. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can you go to a slide after this, I think, where the numbers, yeah. So why didn't we approve the middle numbers, middle chart?
Mostly because along with that came the request to increase the number of lots permitted from 64 to 71. So as staff, we thought that would represent an overdevelopment of the site compared to what was originally intended by the commitments some 20-some years ago.
If they were willing to go to 64, I don't know if they're here or not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you specifically asking about the middle table?
Yeah.
Okay. What I was saying, my comment was directed to the bottom table and the numbers that are crossed out, which represent Pulte's first proposal. The middle table is how the site could be developed now without any action by council. Those are the commitments that are in effect.
I'm wondering why would not Pulte want to do that?
And Pulte's here, and they'd be happy to make a presentation if the council would be pleased by that. But they'd be happy to answer questions. What I could say from staff standpoint is, given the percentage of the original 40 acres, Suzanne, can you go back to the plan again? Back one, thanks. So given the portion in the northwest there that's not now able to be developed, if they were to develop under the existing commitments with the 100-foot wide lots for the majority of the site and 120-foot wide lots along the south perimeter, they wouldn't be able to do 64 lots. I don't know if they've drawn up an alternate plan showing what that would look like. I've done a little bit of math on it, and assuming that it still works with the street configuration, my math indicated that probably the most you could do would be 55 lots because of the additional amount of space that's not available. I have another slide that might address that. If you could go skip forward a bit, Suzanne. I wasn't planning on presenting that because I was trying to keep this fairly brief. Keep going a few more. Right there, thanks. So this actually shows you on the left the site plan that was submitted in the early 2000s when this was originally rezoned. And so you can see that to do 64 lots under the current existing commitments, they were proposing houses up in that northwestern portion that's now not developable, in part because of the existing amenities and pond that went in, and also because of Pulte's apparent need to do an additional pond and add some green space there. So as you can see on the right, the houses or the lots would be, a little bit more clustered in. And so in order to do 64 lots, or in order to, well, that's how it looks to do 64 lots. But if you tried to meet those existing standards that were in the middle table with the 100 to 120 foot lot widths, you would, I'm guessing, come up with probably only 55 lots.
It's a big difference for a guess.
Yeah, and the petitioner can speak to that. What I did was, I say yes, because I think it probably could be lower. I mean, I divided, if you take there's 9 110-foot lots. If you multiply that, you get 990 feet. Divide that by 120, you're only going to get 8 lots there, so you would lose 1. And then you also have 55 lots. If those are each at 85 feet wide. Now, some of them probably end up being a little wider, like especially around the curve there on the west. But if they reach 85, you do the math multiplying 85 by 55 lots, and then instead divide that by 100, I ended up getting 47. So they would lose 8 there, lose 1 along the south line. That's how I came up with the estimate of 55. But again, you know, given how the street configuration works out, maybe they lose more than that, because if you have a given amount of footage along one of these block faces, you may not be able to get exactly all those lots in there. But I think that's a pretty good estimate.
So the one on the left in the black and white is the 2003 commitment site plan.
Correct. I don't know that they committed, I wouldn't say that they committed to doing that exact plan, but that was the original layout that was submitted when it was rezoned. The commitments that were shown in the table, they would have to meet those. Much like if I were showing you the rest of the plan for Whispering Pines to the north, it doesn't look exactly the way this was laid out, but they met, you know, the commitments that were applicable to that. So it could have changed from this layout, but that's how they originally foresaw getting 64 lots in meeting those commitments.
Do you guys have any questions for Paul, or would you like the petitioner to come up and speak, or?
It's not a question for Paul. I think it's a question for Dan and Anna. This is my 6th year, and I don't think I don't recall ever having a modification of a zoning along with a zoning amendment. Can you help us? Can you help me understand? These are 2 different agenda items. How are these? I obviously they're related. How do we relate them per having the zoning amendment first and then the written commitments second? That would seem kind of backwards to me.
Yeah, it's a good question, because you could have, everyone, every landowner has a right to ask the town council to modify or change written commitments. And that in and of itself could be the only thing that you see. And we've had a couple of those. They're rare, but we've had a couple of those. In this particular case, in order to make the rezone work, the commitments would also need to be changed. They're linked, but they are separate cases. So in this particular case, they really matter, because if you were to approve the rezone, then I think you would be bound to then approve the second ordinance, which would be the written commitments that make it work the way it's proposed. That does not necessarily have to be true, but in this case, that's why Paul has mentioned that they're linked together, because the changes in the commitments are what allowed the petitioner to get a favorable recommendation, and what they would need for you to have it be approved and zoned as they intend. And again, these commitments go back a few years, but those commitments were approved by the town council as part of a rezone. And so again, if anybody wants to suggest that those commitments be changed, they have to come right back to where we started in 2007 5 or so, right back here. And it's a legislative function, just like the rezone is. It is thought to be in your sound discretion and wisdom as the town council, as a legislative act. Both the rezone and a change or modification in written commitments are both viewed that way.
Thank you, Dan.
And just, if I might just make one minor clarification there. So because this was rezoned under the county, the town council didn't hear the rezoning and the commitments. They were approved by the county commission at that time. But when the town annexed the property, I think it was just a couple of years after the rezoning, then state statute requires that the town of Avon take on those commitments just as if you had adopted them. Is that correct?
Well, at the time it didn't, but what your policy has always been on annexations is that you said in all annexation ordinances, all commitments made to the county were enforceable and stayed. Now that statute has been changed to say that the commitments come through, but in 2003, that was not quite the case, but you addressed that through your own annexation ordinance. And that was good policy because it provides certainty. Eventually, the legislature really came around on this one, and they put some protections in that not only say they do come in when they're annexed, but also saying that if there's a petition to modify, you have to notify the county. So it's a lot different game now than it was in 2003.
But they still can be changed.
Still can be changed. The county only has a right to be heard on it. They don't have, they cannot override any decision that you would make. It's squarely in your jurisdiction now, not the county, and so it's up to you.
Would it be beneficial to have the developer come forward and present anything? It's been a while since we've seen it. That's why I'm asking.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the Avon Town Council. For the record, good evening, David Compton, Vice President of Land Acquisition, Pulte Homes of Indiana, 11590 North Meridian Street, Carmel, Indiana. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you tonight. Certainly a complex zoning case dating all the way back to 2003 through the county. But first I want to say thank you to Paul, Linda, Steve, and the entire Avon staff. This has been a complicated process because you're digging back into a zoning case that's over 20 years old. Some commitments, sir, that weren't even recorded in the county. We have signed copies that were never recorded that we've been going through with with staff. So it's certainly a complicated process. I do want to thank Mr. Vapor and his family. I've been out to visit them on 4 different occasions, and his hospitality has been great and professional, as well as the Whispering Pines Board of Directors and the Whispering Pines community. We met with the board on 4 different occasions, and we met with the community at large of Whispering Pines that is actually most affected by this zoning. And we'll talk about that in a minute, why they are the most affected of all the parties that are in the room today. And then finally, thanking the Timber Bend people. May not be on the same page tonight, but always appreciate the participation and willingness to meet with Pulte through the process. Excuse me. A little bit of history. The Whispering Pines development was originally proposed by a gentleman by the name of Bruce Scalaire for the Estridge Group. Okay, the original community was supposed to be 199 or 200 homes total. 135 of those homes were constructed in the phases that you've seen and are constructed today. The final phase, the south phase, where it was not to exceed 64 lots, and I think we saw a plan that had 64 lots, was also supposed to be Estridge. It has the zoning commitments are the exact same square footage. The lots are bigger, but the zoning commitments for the actual houses going on the lots were exactly the same. The builder was going to be exactly the same on the south end. Unfortunately, what happened was 2006 through 2008, We all know the meltdown that happened into the market. Unfortunately, the Estridge Group left and now is back in business, and they're one of Pulte's biggest competitors, and I have a lot of respect because our product is very similar to the Estridge Group, and they're a very good company, and were in the past. And so the school did buy it with the intention to put an elementary school there. As their system grew and expanded, as Avon and Washington Township grew. But what happened is over time, their demographics changed. The Avon schools' demographics changed. They're seeing, and this is to quote Dr. Wyndham, less need for an elementary student. As their school system matures, they're seeing more people coming in the 5th and 6th, 7th, 8th, and in the high school. So the need for an elementary school site on this location and also next to the Sycamore School, which is Dan Jones Road and 100, that empty field that's up there that wraps around the dog kennel, that's actually was supposed to also be an elementary school. So now all of a sudden they had surplus ground. And now you have more of a demand for what's needing of school facilities down by the high school itself. There's a piece of ground down there owned by Mr. Grundy, the Grundy family, that's been in front of this council in the past. That it's kind of like a little bit of a pumpkin tooth. It's the one piece that's kind of missing in the school campus. So Pulte Homes approached the schools to do a land swap, not a for sale. We would buy Grundy, and then they would sell us Sycamore, the land north of Sycamore, Aspen Ridge, that's been through your plan commission, and the remaining acreage of the Whispering Pines. So that's kind of how we got here tonight. The school board voted unanimously in favor of supporting this. There is a contract, but it's subject to conditions to go forward. So tonight we stand in front of you to look at R1 versus R2. You can see in your own standards the evolution of the lot sizes in R1. R1 is 90 feet now, not 110, not 120, it's 90. R2 is 80 feet. Updating commitments is common. When you have commitments that are over 20 years old, and I've had the privilege of being in the development community for over 35 years, I can tell you that zoning commitments evolve over a period of time. We saw a lot of changes in house sizes, house styles after the downturn in 08. More articulation in roof lines. Front porches became more important. Interesting elevations on the front, not just all red brick. We used to say you could buy a black car from Henry Ford or a red brick house from Pulte Homes. Now we do a lot more interesting elevations. So want to kind of move on and talk about the petition history. Go ahead to the next slide, please, if we could. Thanks very much. So you can see the existing Whispering Pines to the north, the 135 lots that have already been built out. And you can see Timber Bend to the south. I believe there's 9 lots that adjoin us from the Timber Bend community today. 9 total lots. There's 135 people that are directly affected on the north side because we're the last phase of their community. We use the same entranceway. We're proposing to share the same amenity area. So the introduction in front of you was in January of this past year. At that time, we were proposing 71 lots. 3 APC hearings later, meetings with staff and the neighbors, yes, that has been reduced down to 64 lots, which is the number that was allowed under the original zoning. That was, but some other things have also changed. Let's go to the next phase. As you can see in this, and we can go back to the slide that Paul had too, because the original plan, but today there's 5.56 acres of common area. Under your R2 ordinance, if this was straight zone, there would be 1.6 acres required, okay? So you're saying, what happened to the lots? Explain that. Let me help Paul out a little bit here too. When this was deeded to the school, they retained the right to expand the existing pond, okay? To be big enough to take the water from this site along with the original site. Well, most of that green area that's saved up in this area, and the area south of the pond is woods. The Whispering Pines people have utilized that as kind of their haunted trail and part of their amenity system. Working with Banning Engineering that we were lucky enough worked on the original phase, we came up with saying a 2-stage pond system, not required by the county, not required by Avon, but Pulte volunteering this would provide a better drainage system by filtering the water twice, right? We're going to filter it in our pond, then it's going to go into that second pond with a lot of the other water from Whispering Pines, and then it's going to go down Mr. Vapor's drainage way to White Lick Creek. And so the benefit is a two-stage pond will do a better job of filtering the water. Again, we're also going to save a bunch of trees in a common area that's going to be a lot bigger, as you can see, than what was originally planned. If we pull back out that old black and white photo, there wasn't much of an amenity area there. So we felt that that was a real big benefit to adjust small adjustments in the lot width, which now the buyer doesn't value as much as the lot width. What they value is the house size. And we'll talk about a commitment that Paul did not mention that I think is really important, is an increase in the minimum lot house size from what the existing zoning is today under the zoning commitments. So we've gone from a minimum required of 1.6 to 5.56 acres. The detention has been separated, but we've got a lot of tree preservation. We also put tree preservation on the south property line. And I'm going to show you the trees that are the buffer between Timber Bend and our 110-foot lots. And then we also put the trees in preservation that are out along 625. The reason we try to put trees in tree preservation easements is because when we put them on lots, homeowners sometimes say, well, I don't like trees and they're on my lot and I'm going to clear them. Well, that's not good when we made a zoning commitment that said they need to stay. So that's another reason why you see the green along 625 and the green along Timber Bend. So let's go to the next slide if we could, please. Some enhancements over the 2003, this would be in the commitments and the land plans. I'm kind of lumping these together. A higher square footage of the homes. Under the original zoning commitments, okay, there's two things that really impact what's going to happen in a community. One is obviously the lot widths, right? How wide are the lots going to be? But more importantly, and we'll have another slide we can talk to you about on that, is what is the minimum house size that can go on it, okay? In 2003, the minimum lot size for a one-story was 1,900 square feet. For a two-story, it was 2,200 square feet, okay? Under Pulte's proposal, one of the revised commitments, Mr. Pope, is to increase the minimum ranch size to 2,300 square feet and the minimum two-story by 600 feet to 2,800 square feet. If you want to impact what's going to go on a lot, the biggest impact you can have is increase the minimum house size, because it's about $1,600 a lineal foot to develop a lot. But when you add, and we'll show this in another slide, when you add 600 square feet to a house, you're going to add about $80,000. So if we want to truly make sure that we get highest quality houses, preserve property values, which is one of the 5 key elements, by raising the floor, in this case, the floor minimum house size, we increase and guarantee that property values will be consistent or even higher than what was originally zoned in 2003. Some of the other changes were a secondary access point on 625 finally gets built. That was always anticipated. We talked about more open space. Drainage, one of the folks from Timber Bend mentioned about the drainage. Great question. We've been able to have Banning Engineering already do a preliminary drainage plan. The drainage that comes off this site today will be reduced by 90% because we store it in that pond, it'll stay in that pond, and then it stages out. If you think of a bathtub filling up, and then it flows over through that little emergency hole we used to see, that goes into the second pond, and then slowly goes out into the creek, okay? So we're actually gonna help the drainage that comes out, because we all remember the rains we had in the last week, right? There came a point when that ground was so saturated that it just flowed off. Well, in this case, when that pond exists, it'll flow through the storm sewer pipes, and even though it's coming down streets, and even though it's coming down driveways and sidewalks, it flows into that pond that'll hold the water back. That pond will probably fluctuate anywhere from 3 to 5 feet in height, okay? but that's the storage area. And then it bleeds out over a 24 to 48 hour period. So I think, great question on drainage. I think we're all over it. One of the other things, we've added a minimum brick requirement on all front home elevations. The existing 2003 requirements did not require brick on the front elevations of any of the homes except the south property line. We've also added staggered setbacks. You can see, because there's, let's go back one slide if you don't mind, and I appreciate the extra time. This site plan is fairly fixed because you have two stub roads from the north and a road connection in the southeast corner. So you're going to have straight streets. That's why we agreed to stagger the setbacks, which matches up with the town's desires in providing a little bit of flow in and out. That didn't exist in the 2003 commitments. We didn't think about that back in '03. I was in the business then. We never thought about staggered setbacks. Let's go ahead one slide, please. Again, one of the questions was, and I think it was either Vapors or someone else said, hey, we'd like you to use dark sky. Dark sky are the refraction lights that keep the light down toward the streets and don't spray it all over the place like you see the street lights that are, you know, very bright. We're going to use that. Again, one thing Mr. Vapor did mention that came up in our meetings, right, sir, was the right to farm. That farm's been there, and we want to be very respectful of that. This was not in the 2003 commitments either, that we're going to put in our HOA documents, in the Declaration for Prosperity, but also in the original sale agreement to the first person, that that farm exists. Noise, dust, sounds, whatever is a farm is there today. Our people are going to acknowledge that when they buy the house the first time, but it'll be in the HOA documents forever so that the people after that will also be put on notice. That's another important reason to update the commitments. In 2003, again, we didn't really think about the right to farm. So, I mean, I'm sorry to take all this time, but I think it's important because you asked some detailed questions. And then the other thing that wasn't in the commitments, two other items were, one, we've agreed to put a privacy fence up along the Vapor property. He asked for a 6-foot opaque shadow box fence. We've agreed to that, I think, right? To put a fence along there? Yeah, along the back line. Right, but along the back line, we've agreed to do that, and it'll be maintained by the HOA. We've also agreed to add some landscaping on their property, some trees to fill in the gap that's there, and some trees to fill in the gap along the timber bend. So we have made commitments to add additional landscaping. Let's go ahead to the next one, please. Again, this is what I was talking about in regards to increasing the house size versus increasing a lot width. Today, very few lots are developed in central Indiana that are 100 feet wide or that wider or wider. People want to put the money in the house. And as you can see, by increasing that minimum square footage, we're guaranteeing that the houses will be higher priced because we're bringing up the floor on the minimum of that. Staff strongly encouraged us to not exceed 64 lots. So we moved back to the 64 lot maximum that was under the original zoning. And I think that's important when talking about traffic, because traffic always anticipated 64 lots along 625. What it didn't anticipate in 2003 was a roundabout that the town put in, which I think is a great traffic control device to make the intersection safer and provide for better traffic flow. We'll go ahead, please. So we talk about the Whispering Pine folks, the most affected people. 139, we're their future section. We met with them. They have a very active HOA. They're self-managed. Had many meetings with the community, with the board of directors, Chad Furman, who, if you were, I guess, Greg, you were part of that. He spoke in favor of the project at the Plan Commission. Unfortunately, Chad had a conflict tonight and could not be here. But I want to thank Drew Bills and Robin Ford was their board of directors who we worked with. In front of you and in the zoning commitments is an agreement to share amenities with Whispering Pines. When you pull into that community, you see their amenity area, okay? It's there. And they had concerns because they're so active and they use that amenity area, we negotiated that Pulte and its homeowners were going to pay their way to be part of that amenities area. So what we agreed to do is we would pay $50,000 when the model opens. And then every time we add a family that impacts that amenities area, we would make an additional payment. So that's, at the end of the day, they'll have $300,000 that can be used to repave and expand the parking lot, expand the playground that's in that area. It's add additional chairs and around the pool area, improve trails through the woods and things like that. So we think that this is a great compromise. Our new people are paying their way to be part of it. And then the second commitment was to work in good faith. Because this was originally supposed to be one community, the south side was just supposed to be 64 additional lots. We agreed to work in good faith with their board of directors and the HOA towards consolidating the HOAs into one. Now we don't know all their documents yet, but I don't know if I think I hope I don't have to get 135 signatures. If I got to get 90%, that'll be tough, but not impossible. 70% is the kind of the normal threshold to allow us to have one big HOA. If we can't do that, then we agreed to share capital operating expenses on the amenity area, capital expenses for replacements and repairs of the pool that needs to be respackled, parking lots and that sort of thing in the future, but also to share cost of maintenance of the entranceway, drive, boulevards, flowers, lighting, all that kind of good stuff. So to work a lot better, but Pulte at their expense is going to take the first step forward to try to make sure that at the end of the day, it appears as one homeowners association. So if a realtor sells a house in there, they don't have to say, well, are you part of Whispering Pines South or are you part of Whispering Pines Original? That way it's a seamless one community. So after a lot of discussions with Whispering Pines, we have their full support. It's on record in the Plan Commission. I think Dan and the Plan Commission tapes. I'm sorry that they couldn't be here tonight, but we have their full support of the zoning amendment as well as a commitment of modifications that it's before you tonight. Next one, please. These are some of the home elevations. We talked about what's changed since 2003. You know, brick has been de-emphasized. We're still going to offer a traditional elevation out here, which I don't necessarily have pictured here, but now we use prairie, cottage, low country, northern craftsman. You can kind of see in the lower center. All of these have hardy plank on them. All of them have a water table. You can see every one of them has got a front porch on it. So the elevations and the architectural interest are a lot more than what we used to do in the past. I lived in a Pulte house for a long time. Beautiful color of red brick and Fishers. But that was about all we had was red brick. So I think we've come a long way in architectural interest. Again, you see the square footage ranges from 2,300 to over 3,300 square feet. Next one, please. Two of the people that spoke tonight are adjoiners to the south. The tree line, items 1 and 2 are photos of that tree line that exists today. One of the updated zoning commitments that Pulte made was if something dies in there or needs to be replaced, it's on the homeowners association to make sure that there is always a tree line. That picture was taken in the dead of winter when that tree line would be least full, looking dead south. The one item 2 is standing about 150 feet north of that tree line, which would be the front of the lot. So the lots are 150 feet deep. The buffer area varies from 10 feet to about 30 feet. On top of that, we put these tree lines in common area. So I kind of want to put in perspective exactly what we're talking about in these buffers. Actually, I want to apologize. Item 1 is the buffer along 625 that we're saving. I misspoke. But item 2 is definitely the south property line, and you can barely see the houses to the south on that. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, tonight we have the support of the most affected community, Whispering Pines. The staff report is positive on the project. We received a 6-0 vote, positive recommendation, unanimous from the Avon Plan Commission. We strongly believe that there's an appropriate transition from the R1 that exists in Timber Bend to the R2 in Whispering Pines, supported by an increase in the minimum square footage and the diversity of house styles that'll be built by Pulte Homes. Finally, sorry, just reading off a couple things. The Indiana division of Pulte Homes is the #1 division in the entire company in home complete. So when you move in, your home, is it complete? We do not build perfect homes. No builder does. Chick-fil-A is not perfect. Starbucks is not perfect. But our customer satisfaction scores are right there with theirs on a national basis. And recently we were voted one of the top 100 companies to work for in the United States. If we were dealing a bad product and we didn't care about our customers, I promise you, we would not have any of those achievements going forward. We've been in Avon in the past. This isn't our first project. We've been in business since 1957 when Bill Pulte started the company in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan in high school. We've continuously served our customers and not hidden from anything. We're not perfect, but we always try to do the best and keep our customers first. I remain open for any questions. Please feel free to ask anything that comes to your mind. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Talk about anti-monotony on all four sides of your home, not just the front.
Anti-monotony, we're going to follow, Greg, I think you just recently updated all your UDO when you passed the guidelines that came forth. So we'll follow all the town standards in regards to that. We follow your town anti-monotony, both in front of elevations. The sides of the houses, it's a little tougher, right? You're going to have different windows, and you don't want to put windows where they don't fit into a bedroom. Putting windows in the sides of garages, sometimes we do it because we have to, but it's kind of goofy to put a window in a garage when it's not necessary. But there are windows on all sides of the houses. We'll follow your requirements on that. The front anti-monotony, we will follow, and I am aware, I was just talking, I think, to Melissa and Rex. I'm sorry, they're here from Pulte, Rex Ramage and Melissa Gerard, about following this town's most up-to-date standards in regards to anti-monotony. I totally understand your concerns, Greg. You've expressed those on other projects, and we will endeavor to meet the town's requirements.
David, I'm going to piggyback on what Greg said just a little bit deeper. And I know I've confronted you guys a lot of times on these with other developments.
You're okay.
But especially lining up to the Timber Bend area.
Yeah.
Because those are higher end homes, custom homes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could, on the lots, if you would commit that on the lots that back up to those, that you would do some type of enhancement onto the back of these homes. I mean, they're just a square box. To make them mesh better with.
Let me grab Rex and have him come up. I just want to, he's kind of we work in tandem, Rex and I do, and or I guess Melissa. We can. I just want to make sure that I say it correctly and what we can do. So Melissa Gerard, she's our manager of entitlements, so I want to let her.
So one of the things Mr. Zuzan asked about was the I'm sorry? Oh, Melissa Gerard, Pulte Homes, 11590 North Meridian Street, Carmel. In any event, Greg asked about the rear elevations. One of the odd provisions in the original commitments was there's a provision for staggering the rear setbacks on these homes. And we have not tried to change that. We're going to comply with that. So the rears are going to be staggered just like the fronts. And then also we are doing a minimum wainscot brick on all four sides on both the lots on, and I think I talked about this at the introduction as well, the lots that face on 625 and the lots that are adjacent to the south property line. But in addition, we're covering a few lots at the two entrances up north as well, because you'll see the sides of those homes as well when you enter from Whispering Pines Boulevard. So those were not required, at least the northern lots were not required in the original commitments. We've added those. And then we're continuing that minimum brick requirement on the lots on the east and lots on the south.
So I think that your direct question was some other type of articulation, a screened-in porch, yes.
Mutual interest,
And
because-
the answer is, we can do something there. I want to be cognizant, I think the town, and I'm going to need correction maybe from Ryan on this or staff, that the town doesn't want to have the same projection on every house.
No.
So in one room, it might be a sunroom, one room, it might be a bump, something like that. So I think we can commit to something different on the back of each house. The other thing that I would say that's going to definitely happen in this community with lot sizes that are 150 feet deep, you're going to see people develop also their own backyard entertainment areas, right? You're going to see big decks and porches and pergolas and things like that. But to answer your question directly, yes, we can commit to something additional along those common lots that are backing up to Timber Bend. And I would commit that no more than 2 houses in a row would have the same addition. You know, like if it's a room addition, you wouldn't see more than 2 that chose that. The next one have to do a screened-in porch or some other type of articulation so that it doesn't become monotonous, that you see everybody did the same thing on the back. I think that's where you're headed. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Don, but I think that was a concern I've heard.
You only have 9 lots.
Right.
So to me, you could have 9 different
Yeah.
Yes.
backsides.
Yeah.
And my other question,
Yes, Greg.
you have a better catalog than these homes here, don't you? I mean, these are not the only ones you're going to build, are you?
Well, those are just, each home, there's 5 different home styles. Though what that was proposed to be was to show actual architectural styles that would be built. You know, rather than this, people used to say, give me 50% brick on the first floor, and they'd all look the same because they'd all have 50% brick. So that was to demonstrate the different architectural styles. So there's minimum of 5 different home designs, 1 ranch and 4 2-stories. Each of those has 5 different elevations that come with them. So that has to fit in. There's 25 different possibilities for 64 lots. And then it has to fit in to the town and Pulte's anti-monotony. So the way we generally work that is if a house is here, it can't, the same elevation, same color plan can't be across the street and at least 2 over. And so it's got to be down the street a ways before you've seen the same house with the same elevation. So you're not going to see the same blue Mercedes here and here. You're going to say house A is here and then it's out here away from it. Does that make sense? So you don't get the same house, same color plan next to each other. So
In conversations I've had with people, the word tract housing has come up,
Yep.
thing of the past.
Mhm.
What makes your development different than tract housing?
we are tract housing. I'm not gonna disagree. I mean, we build from standard floor plans. I think the Pulte difference is, you know, we try very hard. We're not your first time home buyer. We don't really service that market. It's not our niche in Indianapolis. In other markets, they may serve that niche, but we don't serve it here. So we always consider us a move up. In fact, based upon the average sales price that we expect to be a move up for people who live in Avon today, the ability to move up to a bigger house with more features that are in it. You know, tract housing, I think is a bad label. You know, you have folks like Estridge, Trees is right back there. We partner with them on some projects. You could call all of us tract builders, but I think when you walk inside the product, you feel really good. When you look at a Toyota Lexus, you say, wow, this is a production car.
Well, that's why I think the outside has to be different.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be, that's why we want the anti-monotony.
Right, and we agree with that, Greg.
But you're going to only offer 5 elevate.
No, 5 elevations on 5 different floor plans. So there's 25 Dawn minimum different elevations to be done in here.
This probably doesn't have anything to do with what
You're
we're
okay.
trying to do here, but I'm just curious since you mentioned it. Are you going to represent this development when converging the HOAs and the existing community has to get a certain percentage? Obviously, that's what their covenants say.
Yeah.
So you're going to represent this development, so that's going to be okay for your side.
Yeah.
you really think you're going to get whatever that percentage is over there unless it's 20 or 30%, which people have talked about doing.
Yeah.
I've started these HOAs and I've been a part of HOAs for 30 years. If you have 60% or more, it's going to be very hard to get that accomplished.
I concur with you, Bill, but I'm promised the board of directors in good faith we would try, okay? And if that's holding multiple meetings and going door to door, but we have the fallback position is we operate as separate HOAs, but cost share, right? We'll cost share on the pool expenses. We'll cost share on the entranceway, on snow plowing, on irrigation, flowers, and fertilization. They're basically about 2/3 of the lots.
And you'll work that into your covenants before you
Yes.
start selling.
Yep. That is a commitment that's part of the zoning. Yes.
We talk about the 2003 plan.
Yep.
Called for 64 homes, and that's where you're at today. However, you're going to use up some of that land for your retainage area, wet pond. People have asked me, why don't you just reduce it then? Because all you're doing is taking those 8 lots and sticking them in the interior of the development. Why don't you just reduce your number of homes from 64 to 56?
Well, I think there's two things, Greg, there. One is just the pure cost of development. You know, today, building 100-foot lots, Easton Gray that just went through, I looked up their zoning, 38 out of 645 lots are 100-foot wide. In central Indiana, we're not building very many 100-foot lots. What the buyer wants is they want it in the house. They want it in common space, which we're giving them a lot more common space of what the buyer wants here. You know, so purely from a cost standpoint, you know, building, you know, big lots means that the people are going to pay so much for the houses and they're not going to build the same size house. And so I can get them to spend the money in the house, which is where I want them to, in the assessed value on a lot that works for them. 135 to 140 feet is the standard depth. Every one of these lots is 150 feet. That's going to be nice on itself. But having a larger minimum lot size, although all the people aren't loving me behind me, will protect them in the future if the market does slow down. They'll be knowing that the minimum lot size now is 2,300 square foot instead of 1,900 square feet for a ranch, and 2,800 square feet instead of 2,200 square feet for a 2-story.
Do you have a floor plan and a product that's a higher level of home than this that you could commit along those 9 lots in the back on the bigger lots?
I guess I'm a little confused because we're going up in the minimum square footage, Dawn, from 2,200 to 2,800 square feet.
Right.
And so by definition, I'm going to give them more value than what could have been there on the old plan. Because the old plan was 120 foot, right? These are 110s.
Right.
So I could have built a 2,200 square foot 2-story on those south property line. Now I'm guaranteeing them a 2,800 square foot. But I do see my product expert, so I'm gonna let him finish the questions. Go ahead, Rex.
Hi, Rex. Yeah, Rex Ramage, Pulte Homes, 11595 North Meridian Street. I think the answer to that question is we would be willing to side load all of those homes on the lots that are adjacent to the Vapors and the Timber Bend to the south because they're
Side load garage.
side load garage them. Yes, we could certainly do that to help the streetscape aesthetic. They're large enough to do that.
What is that?
Well, side loading on your garage, so you come up and you.
So
pull in
instead
that
of
one.
pulling straight in from the street.
But that doesn't help them. They live behind it.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm looking for something that more matches what they have in their backyard. So outdoor amenities, the outdoor fireplaces, something of architectural value, something that more comes in line with what they have on their homes now.
Yeah, so I guess let me just recap where I think we are on the south line. So we have larger lots. They're going to have the brick wrap on. They're going to have the commitment that we made earlier on the enhancement, the rear facade articulation. We can side load them. The other thing that we can do, if it would be appealing to the council, would be we could not offer the ranch plan on those southern lots, which is only 2,300 square feet. So by doing so, you'd set the floor of those homes down there to be 2,800 square feet to provide them with a little bit more comfort about the size and quality of home that's going to be built down there.
I think our challenge, Dawn, is when we say outdoor fireplaces, those things are a lot of times added after the fact by the buyer. It's not a standard,
Right.
addition. When I did my house, I started with the standard 10 by 12 deck, and all of a sudden, 3 years in, I went boom, and now all of a sudden it's 4 times that size, and there's a smart pergola and a fireplace.
Yeah,
So,
I understand.
yeah,
but
I mean, we're open to your suggestions, but I think we've
looking
agreed.
for something back there. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures and
Well, those aren't our photos. Those were photos of homes that match it without doing it today, I think that you took, right, Melissa, in the book? Yeah, those are what could be built there. Those aren't necessarily our houses. We took pictures. Some of those are our competitors of what could be built there today. That is what actually can be built there today, is just a brick rack back there. So I know you don't. I know that, but that's you said what can be built under the existing commitments. That is what can be built.
yeah, that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
I need more commitment from
Sure,
you.
and I think we're absolutely willing to say, as I think Greg said, there's 9 lots there. What I've said is no more than 2 lots in a row will have the same room addition on the back, or it's got to be a screened-in porch or something else back there. On top of that, there's the brick wainscot on the back. I could also offer up, I 100% believe that in the future, decks and fireplaces and pergolas will come. But if you wanted some additional rear yard landscaping, we've done that in the past too, Dawn. Whether it's additional trees or a cluster of trees or some type of landscape bed in the back of each one, we could develop, I think, at least maybe 3 different plans, Greg, so you wouldn't see it more than 3 times back there. An additional rear yard landscaping on top of that rear yard, the protrusion off the house on top of the wainscot. I don't think there's one magic thing that can be done that says, oh yeah, that's it, that's going to solve it for all 9. But I think if we say everyone's going to have the 30-inch wainscot, everyone's going to have some type of protrusion so you don't see what's allowed today. And then everyone's going to have an enhanced landscape package, behind. I think that would help, provide some additional comfort back there. Because you're right, Don. What's on your fingertips today is what can be built into the existing commitments. And I know part of being here tonight, the rezoning process is the discussion we're having to say, how can we make you want a modification, Mr. Compton, how do we make the existing commitments better? And I think there's at least 3 different ways we can do that. The wainscot, the room addition somehow, and then also maybe adding a landscape package at the time of installation.
So that would be a requirement if someone chose that lot, that they would have to do that.
Yes. I'm open to a 4th suggestion. I just don't know,
Well, you start throwing it out and I'll let you know.
Yeah, well, that's why I kind of threw out the landscaping as another way to do it. Because I think the expanded decks and the outdoor living is something that we've seen at this price point, $550 and above average, just comes with the house. People do that over a period of time. It's not their first house. They're not trying to understand how they're going to pay all the dollars that are associated with now owning a home. So, this is a move-up product, so this is very common to see those additions happen.
But these front elevations are not just what could be built, these are your elevations.
These are our elevations, but they're not all 25 elevations. Those are just samples of different architectural style. You can see the ones where the boards are running sideways, that's Tudor. The flat roof is Prairie style. The bigger front porch is Northern Craftsman, or Craftsman style. So the different roof lines, if you look at, the existing Whispering Pines, or you're looking at existing Pulte community like I lived in Fishers, that was built, my house was built in '03. You know, we had very flat roof lines, one continuous for the most part, maybe one bump, but there wasn't gables coming up. There wasn't architectural interest that you see in these elevations. You just saw a lot of red brick on the front of them. So some people still like it. So we've discussed with staff and Whispering Pines still offering a traditional elevation in case somebody still would like that. But as you drive around Indianapolis, that's how you get a better streetscape, is when you put those all next to each other. You don't get the same feel that you're living in a tract neighborhood.
Would you do the same commitments then for the 11 lots on 625? Because you'll see the backyards of those as well. And the shrub landscaping, I think, was the example that this lady had. That probably has shrub landscaping, because those are the older trees that are all with the winds that have just come through. There's some that are knocked down. So how would you take care of that corridor?
Well, I think we agreed on that corridor to make sure that, one, we put the trees in a landscape easement. Two, we would replace any of the buffer that were along there. So if they do die, it would be replaced with an opaque screen along there.
No anti-monotony packages there as well.
We could do that, yes.
Well, that's what we see. I mean, you go down
Yeah, you're right.
south and you see the anti-monotony issues we have, because shame on us.
Yep, I cannot argue with that statement, so therefore I agree. On 625, Greg, yes. The answer is yes.
I have a probably a legal question here. So there's, Dan, a lot of stuff has been discussed this evening. How do we get this down so that we get these commitments without, just because I say I'm going to do something, without getting it in writing? I assume that anything could change, so.
Well, you are allowed to, in considering the rezone, you are allowed to require, you're allowed to accept commitments that the petitioner will commit to, but you would need to include it in your motion. So if you had a motion to approve the ordinance, you would want to be very careful in articulating the commitments, because what you approve is what matters, and they're permanent. And that's all that you can enforce. So you would need to do that. Now, there are, in this particular case, written commitment modifications in front of you, so you can see just how detailed these commitments are supposed to be. But if you were going to place, or, ask that additional commitments be done, you would need to be very specific in your language if that's what you wanted to do.
Shouldn't these things be in writing so that we can read them into the motion?
That is, well, one option you would have would be you could continue it based upon reviewing the proposed commitments if you believe that you need more definition and specificity in what is being discussed, because it is not very specific at this point, at least I would think. Or you could just say, the case is here, and you could try to craft a motion that contains what you think you want.
Okay, thank you.
Not to interrupt council, but what we also have done in the past is that the commitments, the motion has to be consistent with the record. And since council's here tonight, it's got to be acceptable to council.
And we're recorded and we're live streamed, so.
Exactly. So
Go
that,
back on anything.
right. So there's a way to go back and look at the tape and make sure that what actually gets recorded.
Want to make sure.
Yes, I understand, sir.
Well, but it's the motion that you make that controls. The discussion is the discussion. It's the, well, no, I'm just trying to not agree, I guess, with Mr. Compton here is what I'm trying to do. Yeah, it's your motion that controls what happens, not the discussion. And you had a case last year where this became kind of a point, and I had to make the argument that the ordinance is what controls, not the discussion. So again, this is, the five of you will decide what that is. If you want commitments, I would encourage you to be as specific and detailed as you can, because your motion is what will control.
Dave, what's this green lot right up here?
That's common area.
What?
Why?
Yeah, what is that?
With the road, when they developed the first sections, the first 135 lots in Whispering Pines, they had to get storm sewer to the existing lake. So they ran it through the undeveloped section. So that could be a lot if we relocated the storm sewer. But right now, there's a storm sewer kind of running halfway through that lot.
The answer is Whispering Pines North owns that.
Okay.
The storm sewer is part of their storm sewer system.
Okay.
That's why.
I have one question.
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
you can't go down to 56 lots, but could you, if you eliminated lot 21, could you give that south lots, could you make them 120 instead of the 110 so that they match the timber bin or the 2003 commitments? So you'd be reducing one lot and then giving the lots that equal, at least on the south end, the commitments that were already previously there.
Yeah. I would say that if we did that, then I might try to relocate that storm sewer and keep it at 64. But I could make a commitment to stay at 120.
Do 120 on those lots that border?
So that will necessitate the loss of a lot
Uh-huh.
and spread out along there.
Mm-hmm.
And that way it stays. And then we would stay at 64 and I'll go relook at the cost of relocating that storm sewer.
Okay.
Obviously, I'd have to, I'm looking at
That's
the.
generous of you. I appreciate it.
No, I'm not looking for a thank you. I'm just agreeing. But that would be 120 on the south line then.
I'm just trying to give them
Sure.
what they thought would be behind them.
Sure. Yes,
That's what
ma'am.
I'm trying to do.
I understand though.
Any other?
You've kind of jumped around this question. What really is stopping you from sticking to these commitments that have been in place since the original and our current R1 standards? The only thing I've heard from you is, yeah, but you're going to build a bigger house than what our current standards are. There's nothing stopping you from doing that today.
No, you're correct, Robert, but the current R1 standards are 90 feet, not 100.
Sure.
And
Those
so.
commitments are what's requiring you to go to those.
And the market today does not desire 100. You know, I'm not going to increase my square footage if I can't reduce the lot size, because the market is the market. The market is going to provide for X priced house. Just because I build bigger lots doesn't necessarily mean that the house price, the end price of the house is going to be bigger. So it would be, I can't increase the house size and leave the lot size the way it is. The market has changed since 2003. Many of the commitments, as Dawn's pointed out, the rear of the houses can be flat as long as it's got a brick wrap on it. There's no articulation required that Greg's talked about on the back. So the reason for the purpose of the rezone is what we did in '03 is not where the market is or where what the town has learned even from other projects in making projects better. 10 feet.
So let me, I thought that was going to be kind of a softball for you. Let me try and give it to you a different way.
Well, Rex, maybe you jump in.
Many of the arguments that we heard tonight was from the residents who are going to live behind there. And if I were to summarize those in a few words, it's that they don't like what is going to be proposed that's going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
The commitments as they are, you even yourself said you don't like the way that they look. So if the way that they're that you'd be committed to building these homes as they are right now without needing to come before us. You even said yourself you don't like the way they look, so you're kind of agreeing with them. For us to go through this process and the changes that we've made prior in our planning commission commitments, the changes that are being made tonight, are you making this better? And I think that's what they're trying to get to. And so I think what they're wanting, and I think what you're trying to say is what you're doing, is because we're going through this and the changes that are going to be forced on you by our planning commission and by this council are going to make the end product better for those in Timber Bend who are going to have these homes behind them.
Absolutely,
Would that
in
be
one word.
correct?
Yes, in one word, absolutely. Because if we build 120 and 100 footers, then, and we stay at the original commitments, then you're at 1,900 and 2,200. You're at flat backs with brick wrap. You're at 2003 architectural standards that are very monotonous and out of date as of today.
The difference would be 5 foot to 10, 15 foot, if I remember, of lot width per lot. And now with Dawn's new commitment of removing that one on that edge, I think we're actually meeting
We are meeting
the
what?
commitments of, again, what you guys could come in and build today without needing to come before this council. Is that correct?
Only on the south property line.
On the south property line, yes, which is what
Yes.
most of our residents and house are concerned about. I appreciate you saying that, but don't take this the wrong way. I don't trust you that much. I trust them, and I'm looking to you to. Am I understanding that correct?
I think Linda and Paul should come up and answer that question.
Well, I think Linda and Paul could write down some of these other commitments too that we talked about.
Paul, were you taking notes? Yes. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry to make you speak more, but could you
You want me to say that again?
succinctly repeat that question?
Yeah, fair enough. We have our zoning standards in place, and on top of it, commitments that have been made prior. With what's been presented and what Pulte is suggesting is I understand that they legally could come in right now and build to those standards. What I've heard tonight cumulatively from the residents of Timber Bend is they don't want to see those flat back, tract looking homes. They could build those as it sits right now without coming before this council. What Pulte is proposing with the commitments that the planning commission has made, with the commitments that our staff has put on, and the commitments that have been made here tonight is making this development better, and I believe addressing the issues that the residents of Timber Bend are having with this development. I think that's the most succinct way I can put all that together. Is that making sense?
So you've said a lot. I will say that by increasing the lot width along the south perimeter to 120 feet, and if I understand correctly, they're planning to make those lots 150 feet deep. So 120-foot width would meet the current commitment. Adding 10 feet of width times 150 adds 1,500 square feet to the 16.5.
So that gives us our 18.
Right. So it would meet the lot width and lot area requirements along the south line. So I think it would be a fair statement to say that they would be meeting the existing commitments along the south property line. Obviously, they're
With
still
the
asking.
addition of anti-monotony, with the addition of it, so it's not looking the same. It's not looking like tract homes.
Right. Well, and as has been somewhat discussed already, we did, as you remember, modify the architectural design requirements for single-family homes just last fall. Obviously, you guys aren't seeing that out in the community yet because it takes time for new subdivisions to get built. But the changes that you passed in the fall actually strengthen the anti-monotony. Because what used to be the enhanced standards now are the regular standards. They do apply to the rear facades, so that should get applied at the time of permitting, such that no two rear facades should look exactly alike. So that might actually be stronger than what's been discussed tonight, which was not having more than two rear elevations in a row that would have the same feature. Now, maybe he's talking about having a sunroom on two in a row, but one's on the east side of the facade and the other's on the west side. That could still meet anti-monotony. So that could be compatible. Did that answer your question?
I think so, but I also think I'm misunderstanding you.
No, I don't think you are. I think I'm going to give you a simple answer to your question if I understood it right. I believe, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, that yes, staff believes that you are getting a better product, which is why staff supported the recommendation. Is that what you were actually looking for?
Yes.
That is why staff changed our recommendation to support it. Yes. I think that's what you're looking for. Paul gave you a long answer to that.
And for my clarification, Paul, you're saying that our new standard R2 is what is better than what Dawn's already asking them to commit to tonight?
The anti-monotony standard that will be applied in all single-family subdivisions, whether it's R1, R2, R3, et cetera, is going to be stronger than it was prior to last fall. And so, yes, it would require that no two rear facades be identical, as opposed to the commitment that I heard, which again, maybe, they would want to clarify, but that they wouldn't have two in a row, more than two in a row that were identical. So yes, our anti-monotony standard in the UDO should be stronger.
And their application came after those were
Correct.
adopted.
Yes.
So really what we have is the elimination of lot 21 to give the 120-foot wide, to make the 18,000 square feet lots that back up to Timber Bend. They've agreed to enhanced landscaping on those homes that back up to that.
Yeah, so if you'd like me to kind of read into the record, the notes I took on the additional commitments submitted tonight, and I'm just looking for how it's worded right now on the lot list. So right now, what they proposed, for the proposed modifications for the South 40 acres, number one, is that lots depicted on Exhibit B attached here too with a black dot, parenthetically, which are the ones along the south perimeter, shall be a minimum of 16,500 square feet in size and 110 feet in width at the building setback line. So that should be pretty easy to swap out the 110 and 16.5 with 120 and 18,000. The other two that I wrote down, well, the one is that no more than two rear elevations in a row shall have the same articulation feature. Again, I think the UDO is going to be a little bit stronger than that, so unless they have something to add to that, it might not be practical to even really add that. The other one I heard that was that 3 different enhanced landscape plans would be provided to be used in the rear yards along the south perimeter.
And then they would do the enhanced along 625.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I didn't have a note with that. I'm not, if they did agree to that, I missed it, but
Yeah.
if so, or if you want to add that.
David, we were talking about the 625 also.
For the enhanced landscaping?
Yes.
Yes, we'll commit to that.
Okay,
So that'd
and
be
then-
the other set of blue dots that are in there
And then the no ranches along.
on the
on the
south property
On
line.
the south 9 properties.
Yeah.
So was that a motion you just made?
I'm gonna leave that to you.
So wait, sorry, can I ask the one other note I had was side load garages.
Side load garage, I think it looks better from the front. I don't know that it'll make a difference to them in the back, but it will enhance the front architecture.
Okay. Again, that was the only thing you guys didn't bring up that we talked about, so.
I think it's a good thing.
That's what I got written down.
Yep. Greg's gonna make the motion. Is there any other discussion or questions or comments?
I do have 2 more questions. I don't know that it's wholly relevant to the motion that's going to get made, but I just want to, you went on a sales pitch, and I want to make sure a couple things were noted. One was drainage. From my education on being on this council, more or less, if anything gets developed, our drainage ordinances will essentially wipe out any ordinance or any drainage issues. I was told a number here was 90% tonight, but so my question is, if this developed as is, as R1, as R4, as C2, would we essentially have a similar drainage reduction? That was touted as a bonus of having it developed as proposed, and I just want to make sure my education tells me no, that doesn't matter.
Well, so it could matter. That gets complicated because they were basically vested in 2003. So the drainage ordinances that applied at that time would potentially apply. They are saying they will comply with current ordinances. So we would expect that them complying with current ordinances will mean we'll have a superior drainage system to what the standards were in 03. Either way, I would tell you that those standards in 03 weren't bad. So either way, our
drainage would have
ordinances will
improved.
require a drainage system that is functional and that will work regardless. But committing to complying with our current standards will provide us better drainage than what it would have in 03.
Fair enough. Perhaps not all the way to the 90% that, okay.
Right.
The other one, and I think this is more for you, Dan, was the right to farming. If this right were not included, what changes would that have? Would these home buyers of this subdivision being proposed have any kind of right to dictate what the vapor farmland uses regarding dust, noise, smell, anything of that nature?
No, it's the law.
So
It's the law. It's a good that they're included because it puts people in notice and not everyone knows, but it's the law.
So it's more of just a courtesy to these home buyers to let you know, hey, you got no say to the farmland next door.
Well, I think it's I think it's information everyone should know. They go into things with their eyes wide open. I'd say it's more than a courtesy. I'm glad it's in there, but it isn't imposing obligations that don't exist under law. But it is good that it's in there because a lot of people don't know that.
Fair enough. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Anything else? If not, does someone want to make a motion? Greg?
Is there any opportunity for any more speaking?
No, not at this point. There will be another public comment before the meeting closes, right after our legal counsel report, but comments, yeah, but comments were prior to.
So he gets to talk for 2 hours and we get 3 minutes?
And no questions?
Yeah, we get 3 minutes and they get 2 hours. That doesn't sound fair.
Well, I have a question. Nobody's addressed, I just thought of. Seems like we should get some rebuttal to an hour's presentation.
But this isn't a public.
Yeah, but it's not a public hearing, so, we have to just follow the agenda the way that it goes, so I apologize for that.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-09 with the following additional commitments that, and this revolves around the Timber Bend south line. They eliminate lot 21. They expand the minimum lot size to 120 feet. They use brick wrap. They have side load garage entry, minimum of 2,800 square feet, enhanced landscaping package. And I'm going to say 11 different type of home packages on those, for those properties,
No ranches.
and no ranches. And then on 625, and no anti-monotony, I'll say it, but I know it's in there, but I'm going to still say it. And then on 625, enhanced landscaping and anti-monotony on those lots.
So just for clarification, did you make a statement about first floor brick wrap?
They had talked about a brick wrap on those homes.
Okay, they are already in their proposed commitments is a 30-inch brick wrap, so I don't think that was anything additional offered, just to clarify.
Okay.
Okay.
And then on 625, enhanced landscaping and anti-monotony on those lots.
So just for clarification, did you make a statement about first floor brick wrap? Okay, they already in their proposed commitments is a 30-inch brick wrap, so I don't think that was anything additional offered, just to clarify. And just also to clarify for the record, I don't know, Mr. Taylor, correct me if this is unnecessary, but I don't think it's necessary to say that they're eliminating lot number 21 if they're just, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but if they're increasing the lot width to 120, then that's going to obviously necessitate moving things down.
Well, I figure
But when
they're
they
gonna
number things, they're
eliminate
probably
that
still going to end up
get
with a
the
lot
120s.
21.
That's how they're going to come up with it. That's
Okay.
Well, when I spoke with him, I said, could you eliminate lot 21? That's what he committed to. Mr. Compton committed to, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess just depending on how the map works out, I mean, there's still going to be,
Mhm.
those other 8 lots to the east are going to be 10 feet wider.
Mhm.
There's still going to be something in that spot, and there's still going to be a lot number 21 subdivision, because it wouldn't make sense to skip over that.
Right, makes sense. 120 feet on the lots that back up to Timber Bend.
And then the overall number of lots in the development would be 63 then versus.
I think that's the way to word it, Greg, that they'll reduce the number of lots to 63.
But he's saying that that green space, he might want to use that as a lot and just pay for the pipe, the drainage pipe to be moved, because it is a lot already.
Can I make a suggestion that with the amount of complexity to these commitments, the confusion that it seems we have on exactly what these commitments are, and with the late hour, that we continue this to the next council meeting or to a later council meeting at your discretion? In fact, I don't know. I think I'm making a motion to that effect, but you were already in the middle of a motion, so forgive me. I don't know how that one, help me out there, Dan.
Greg's motion is being made. It doesn't have a second. You can't really make that motion until you get a second. Your motion doesn't have priority. So, I mean, you would need to have, you really need to resolve one before you get to the other.
Understood. For now, I'm not making that as a motion. I'm suggesting that as additional discussion.
You understand, Paul, what we're doing. You're good with that.
I think that we can, yes, I think we can capture what's been presented and what you've summarized.
Madam President, if you get a second, I'd like to comment if you get a second.
Okay. We have a disjointed motion, but we do have a motion. So does anyone want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
Madam
so-
President, since these are commitments, I think just for the record, you should ask the petitioner if it is willing to agree to the commitments that are contained in the motion,
Okay,
having just heard them, just for clarity.
thank you. Mr. Compton, you've heard the motion. Do you accept the commitments that were made in that motion?
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. So Kathy, would you take roll call, please?
Four.
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 All right. Next is the final reading of ordinance 2025-11, the Briarwood zoning amendment 24-13.
Hey, Dawn, we also need to do 2025-10, which is the written commitment.
Oh, I thought we were
modification.
doing them together. Okay, go ahead. 2025-10, the Whispering Pines written commitment modification.
And I would just mention that since you just added commitments, I would suggest that you add them to any motion that would be made on this ordinance.
Okay. With that said, any discussion, questions?
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-10 with the additional commitments that were included in ordinance 2025-9.
Second.
You have a first and a second. Kathy, roll call.
And subject to the petitioner to accept those commitments.
We do.
Thank you. Julie, or I'm sorry, Kathy.
Robert Coe,
Four.
Bill Holland,
Four.
Jason Puckett.
Four.
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Susan,
4.
Okay, now moving on to the final reading of ordinance 2025-11, zoning amendment 24-13. Linda?
Suzanne, can you go back to Paul's presentation? Yep, those two that you just skipped through. Okay, good evening. This is your second rezoning petition on the docket tonight that's been forwarded to you from the Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation. This is the Briarwood subdivision. It was filed with us in December 2024 for originally 49 lots. Can you, next slide. This is the subject site. You all have seen this once at the introduction and then again at a work session where I discussed the changes to the case with you. So you should be familiar with it. This is on County Road 900 East. Oh, now it's working. Go back one. Go back to the aerial, yeah. So when this was originally filed, it was the large property here and then these two lots up here on the northern end. If you recall, they were showing the entrance up here on the north and proposed it to be a right-in, right-out entrance because it was too close to the entrance to the Eden Gate subdivision here. That's Dillon Drive. It went before the Plan Commission twice. The first Plan Commission, it got continued after the commission indicated they did not care for the right-in, right-out entrance and were not generally looking favorably upon it. At the urging of staff, we requested that they contact the property owners of these three lots, or three parcels, I should say. It's two property owners, but three parcels of land to obtain those and annex them and then add them into the petition to rezone so that the entrance could be lined up with Eden Gate. The petitioner was able to come to an agreement with those property owners and they have been included in the petition. Next slide, Suzanne. And so here is the site plan that we are reviewing tonight for the zoning. The entrance does line up here. However, the number of lots was increased from 49 lots to 55 lots. And they came to staff to gauge our reception of that increase to 55 lots. We were generally in support of because they proposed a 70-foot wide boulevard at the entrance, which creates essentially two lanes, one in, one out, but two lanes, so one is available at all times if one is blocked and then one is needed for emergency access. Since you last saw this, they have also increased the landscaping and amenity area in the center. They've added a park bench and pond overlook area on the northern pond. They've added a butterfly garden space here, and then a trail from the interior of the site out to 900. The Plan Commission reviewed this, and while it seemed like generally folks on the Plan Commission were in favor of the rezoning, there were some that had concerns about 49 lots on one entrance. Since the Plan Commission has proposed to take this trail area that goes from the interior of the site to 900 and widen it to 22 feet as proposed by the Department of Public Works for an emergency access with, let me get the term right here.
Removable bollards.
They're bollards, I don't get the term right. But they're basically bollards that will go down if emergency is needed, but that a driver on 900 wouldn't accidentally turn into it. It would be bollards. And then it could be a duplicate use of the trail and the emergency access. So since the Plan Commission meeting, which was a favorable recommendation 4-2, that is the change that is before you. Changing from a trail access to a duplicate trail and emergency vehicle access. The fire department is in support of this proposal, was in support of it with the wider boulevard, but has no additional comment with the emergency access. The proposal is to rezone to R4. I would make note, and this was similar to the Beechwood townhomes you saw earlier today, in that ideally for an infill lot like this or parcel like this, we like to connect to stub streets. And unfortunately, when these three subdivisions are all in the county, and when they were developed by the county, unfortunately, no stubs were put to this property, which puts it in a bit of a challenging position because there's only one way to access in and out, and there's not room to get a second access on here that would have separation from the proposed larger access. So we went through the rezoning criteria, and I'll just run through them real quick for you here. The first being the comprehensive plan. I will note the comprehensive plan recommends specialty housing for this site. Specialty housing is designed as anything that does not include single-family or two-family dwellings, single-family detached or two-family duplexes. So clearly, a single-family, while the zoning district would meet the comprehensive plan, the proposed single-family detached use would not. So we don't believe that criterion 1 is quite met, but again, rezonings are the totality of the criteria and not just meeting every single one. Second criteria, that the current conditions and character of the structures and use district. We believe that since the site is completely surrounded by single-family detached dwellings, that the proposed rezoning would be consistent with the current character and structures of the surrounding area. Criterion 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each zoning district is adapted. We believe that a single-family detached development would be the most desirable use for this land because it is completely surrounded by residential uses, single-family detached. Number 4, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction. We have no reason to believe that the development of this land in this manner would have any substantial or adverse effects on the property throughout the district. And then finally, responsible development and growth. Because the major change to the site plan of relocating the entrance to the safest location along 900, since that change was made, we do believe that this would be responsible growth and development for this portion along 900. So therefore, we do believe all 5, or not all 5, but the totality of the 5 criterion have generally been met. We are supportive of the rezoning. Again, the Plan Commission passed along a favorable recommendation. The petitioners here with a brief presentation to show you what their changes have been since we last saw it. You have any questions of me?
Any questions from them?
You said that path is 22 foot wide? That is not to scale on this.
Yes, it shows 12 foot on our close-up here. Did you misspeak, or is it wrong on here? or-
And so that makes more sense. Why 22 feet? That seems incredibly wide for an emergency vehicle to go down.
That was what was requested from the Department of Public Works.
Because, yeah, on the drawing here, it shows 12 foot with the removable bollard, so.
Where are you seeing 12?
Did I get that number wrong?
Right here on,
Oh,
12? I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 12.
okay.
I must have confused
that
22 and
seems
12.
more reasonable. My next question then is, this would be for Steve. Is that going to be required to be built to support to our public road standards? It needs to carry the weight of a fire apparatus fully loaded with water.
Correct. Yeah, that's normally the requirement if it's an emergency access. The width is less of a concern than the actual structure of the trail to be able to support the fire truck.
Sure.
But Levi does provide specific requirements to that, and so Dries was probably provided those.
My apologies on the
No worries. No, that was definitely not to scale.
All right. Hello, I'm Caitlin Dofer, Land Acquisition Manager with Dries. I also have Keith Lash with me tonight. He's our Division President, as well as Stephen Kyle. Our address is 900 East 96th Street, Suite 100, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46204. And just to briefly touch on the project, I know it's a late hour, but next slide, please. I do want to make mention of the timeline of this project. We've been collaborating with staff since September. And as Linda mentioned, this project has transformed over that time. We've met with TAC. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings. Each one we've sent out over 90 notices for. The first one household joined us. And then the second one, 3 households joined us. So we do want to thank them for their feedback during this process. And we've also been at Plan Commission twice, which ultimately got us to the concept plan we're showing you today. Next slide, please. As Linda mentioned, and this is just a brief overview of the area, this is the original outline of the project. We started out at just over 16 acres with that very minimal frontage on 900 East. Next slide, please, which got us this land plan. The right in, right out entrance as far north as we could. And we did hear the feedback from council during our introduction and then Plan Commission as well, that was not desirable, that we really needed to do a full right in, right out and aligned with Eden Gate across the street. So after we were continued at Plan Commission, we spent the next month or so talking to the property owners to the south, which are occupied homes. And we got them under contract and we've added them to the project. Next slide, please. So that's the outline of those homes just for reference. That added about 1.73 acres to the project, bringing it up to about 18 acres overall. And those are currently in the annexation process. Next slide, please. So in order to build this project that we're proposing, we are asking for an R4 zoning with commitments. We have increased the number of lots from 49 to 55. That is proportional to those added 1.7 acres that have been added to the project in order to align our full expanded entrance with Eden Gate across the street. Knowing that the maximum number of lots on one entrance is 49. That's why we've proposed an extra wide entrance at 70 foot wide compared to the 60 foot wide minimum. We also heard feedback from Plan Commission about wanting that emergency access. And so we've utilized that trail connection off of 900 into the interior of the project to have that emergency access. Density overall, as this project has evolved, has stayed relatively consistent. We're at 3.3 overall. Open space has also stayed consistent. Acreage-wise, we've bumped it up a little bit to 3.67, still proportional with where the project started. And then we have that internal trail system, gathering spaces in that central part of the community, as well as a pond overlook area and a butterfly garden to make for a really nice visual amenity for those lots in the southeast corner, as well as our existing neighbors. Next slide, please. And here's just a visual of what that widened entrance looks like. So as I mentioned, figure 1B, that's the typical 60-foot wide right-of-way, minimum required entrance. And we are proposing a 70-foot wide right-of-way. So you can see with those boulevards and the wider lanes, just how much more breathing room traffic is going to have with this enhanced entrance. And then as well as that emergency access to just making sure that no matter what, emergency vehicles are going to have access to the site. Next slide, please. And then just looking at, apples to apples comparison of the original concept plan versus the updated concept plan. As I mentioned, our acreage has gone up a little bit with getting those extra 2 properties or 3 properties under contract. Our lot count has increased, and that is to offset that added cost and investment. As I mentioned, these houses were occupied. These are households that were not planning to move anytime soon. And so we did have to offer them above market pricing for their house. And our density with that added acreage has stayed relatively the same at just about 3 units an acre. Open space is still the same at about 20%. And our lot width has stayed consistent throughout this project, proposing 53-foot wide and minimum lot square footage of 6,600 square feet. Next slide, please. And then touching on our product, we are proposing empty nester targeted product. These are all single-story ranch floor plans. We're proposing 5 different floor plans, which were included in your council packet. So you can see that the majority of them have that rear articulation. You can see how they live and flow. And then all of our buyers, they get to choose their lot, their floor plan, their elevation, and then they go through our design office as well and choose every feature of their home. Next slide, please. And here's an example of some of the interior finishes. We are a semi-custom home builder, so the floor plan that's in your packet, that's really just a starting point. Buyers can change things as they like. If they want a dog wash station, we can absolutely do that, and they can really make the home their own. Next slide, please. So why ranch homes? We build in a number of communities throughout central Indianapolis, and we've had a lot of success selling ranch homes. It's not an easily available floor plan in the market. Especially for newer homes, and baby boomers are one of the largest buying segments today. And the buyers that we really cater to is the discernible buyer. And so you're talking about baby boomers in the area, existing Avon residents who need to downsize but aren't willing to sacrifice quality. They want that experience of building a brand new home and choosing all of their finishes. And speaking of 55 and up or baby boomer residents, Avon today, according to census data, has about 25% of 55 and up residents, so about 1 in 4. So we certainly believe there is a market here. And then, as I mentioned, some buyers have needs and wants and really want to have that customization process, which we believe we can give them. Looking at current inventory in Avon today, there's extremely limited existing ranch home options. Pulling listing data last month, there were less than 3% of active listings that were newer than 10 years old on the market. So if you're a discernible buyer who doesn't want a remodel project, your options are incredibly limited. And then, as I mentioned, limited new home construction. So as we just saw with Pulte's project, many builders only offer 1 or 2 ranch floor plans, some none at all. So for the buyers who just want a single floor, their options are limited, as I mentioned. And I know we've discussed age-restricted communities before. Looking at John Burns' data, and that is a residential or a real estate market research firm. They've said that less than 1 in 4 buyers desire an age-restricted community. So we do think that, you know, not only are single-story floor plans incredibly rare in the market, but having age-restricted only communities doesn't exactly hit the entire market and their need. Next slide, please. And then looking at our R4 with commitments, we do recognize that R4 does allow for smaller lots, higher density than what we're proposing. And so we want to propose as many guardrails as possible to make sure that the Briarwood project that we are presenting before you is the only project of this quality that can be built on this property. So we are dedicating 50-foot half right-of-way along County Road 900 East. We are committing to a maximum of 55 lots, committing to only single-family detached uses, minimum lot size of 6,600 square feet, minimum 53-foot wide lots at the building setback line, minimum 1,500 square feet living area, and committing to installing an emergency access. So that chart up on the screen gives you an idea of where all of those commitments have Briarwood falling in other residential districts. So our density is close to R2. Minimum lot size, we're at R3. The minimum lot width is really the only standard where R4 comes into play. And then our minimum ground floor area, we fall into the R1 category, and then permitted uses, we fall in line with E1, R1, and R2. Next slide, please. So who we are as a company, Drees Homes has been a family-owned and operated business for almost 100 years now. We're Cincinnati-based, and we've been in the Indianapolis market for over 25 years. We are a smaller, lower quantity builder. So last year, or over the last 12 months, we've closed 224 homes. Some of our publicly traded competitors, they're closing 1,000, 2,000 plus homes. So we're really focused on quality over quantity, making sure that we're focusing on our customer buying experience, and really making it, you know, everything it can be for our buyers. Our building approach is custom plus construct. That means that we're custom in design, but we provide the ease of production building. So while custom home builders, they allow you to choose from any sort of resource or material, which can be really overwhelming and leads to a very long build process. We have our design center, we have our trades that we work with, making the home buying process extremely easy. And then the buyers that we serve, these are going to be for sale homes. We serve the discernible buyer, meaning they value quality over quantity, and they're willing to pay more for the customization and quality. The homes in Briarwood are going to have a $425,000 average sales price. So these are going to be more discernible buyers that are looking to place money in what could very well be their last home. And then we have a proud company culture that focuses on care. Next slide, please. And this is really looking at making sure that we communicate effectively, always doing the right thing, building our relationships, and focusing on exceptional quality. And that's not just with our home buyers, but that's with our trades, internally as coworkers. And it really leads to, next slide, please. Here you go. We have over 91% of our customers are willing to recommend us to friends and family, and we're incredibly proud of that. Next slide, please. And then just to wrap up and end on where the property is today. This is a mostly empty property. There's a vacant home on there. There's an empty pool. Talking to our neighbors at the neighborhood meeting, they did say, you know, this is a nuisance property. There's been people that have broken into the home, that have broken windows, broken into vehicles on neighboring properties. There's a tree that's fallen on a neighbor's fence recently. So we do believe that this site can be better. We believe the area deserves better, and that Briarwood could be an excellent asset for the town of Avon and hit a much-needed part of the market. Next slide, please. And with that, happy to turn it over for questions and comments.
Any questions?
These 4 pictures that you provided us of the homes that you're proposing, you have more than 4 of these that you can, I mean, if you got 55 and you divide that by 4, you're going to have 11, 12, 15 of them the same.
We have 5 floor plans that we're offering. So if your packet only had 4, I apologize. There should be 5 floor plans. And then each floor plan currently offers 2 elevations. And then the buyers go into our design center and they choose their color packages, their masonry materials. So even though it only shows 2 different elevations, the customization portion of our building process really creates a lot of variety.
Again, and my point is that we don't, anti-monotony, the interiors are all different. I get that, but you got to get inside the house to see that difference. I want to see it from the road and the curb appeal. So.
Understood.
So although they can pick out their design, our anti-monotony UDO would not allow, I mean, you'd have to let them know they can't have that color that the next door neighbor had, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We make sure during the sales process, before someone even decides what floor plan elevation we want, we make them aware of their limitations and what their options are.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-11 for the Briarwood subdivision as presented.
Second.
Can we add some commitments to it? Even though they've indicated it's a 70-foot right-of-way boulevard entrance, I want to make that a commitment to that, as well as the 12-foot trail emergency access, make that a commitment. And they provided us some different renderings, but it's not stated in the ordinance underneath all these commitments. The other ones seem to tie back too, so.
Do you want to amend your motion?
Yeah, you said you wanted to amend it to include the 12-foot emergency access and also to make the right-of-way exit 70 feet?
Yeah, the 70-foot boulevard entrance.
Do we need to get the petitioner's approval on that as well? Okay.
We agree to those commitments.
Bill is your second.
Second.
Okay. Kathy, could you take roll call, please?
4.
4.
4.
4.
4.
Okay. Introduction of ordinance 2025-12, amending the stop streets and traffic safety signal schedule. Ryan, are you speaking to that?
Yeah, just real quick. As you guys know, whenever we adopt or annex new areas, you guys have to codify any stop sign locations. So we had 2 annexations that added some additional stop signs. So Anna and Steve worked together to draft this ordinance to add those. You also have to document locations for traffic signals where they've met warrants. And so we do have a signal that went up on South Ronald Reagan at Veterans Drive. And then we also have another one going in on the north end. So Steve added those as well. So this is just an introduction.
Any discussion, questions? If not, does someone want to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, introduction. It's late. I'm tired. Okay, we'll show it introduced. Ordinance 2025-12. Next is legal counsel report.
Nothing, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next is the second of the two public comment sections. The public may comment on the items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing or on a specific matter within the council's jurisdiction. Please come forward, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Oh, and your address, sorry.
My name is Libby Whipple, 1824 Water Oak Way in Timberland. I apologize for my lack of understanding of how this worked tonight. I attended the 3 public hearings that were before the Plan Commission, one virtually because I was sick, 2 in person. I just have to say, in general, I'm incredibly disappointed. I'm incredibly disappointed in this process. I was disappointed with the lack of preparation of the Plan Commission members. And Greg, I'll say, you were only there for the 3rd of the 3 when the Whispering Pines issue was before you. I was probably the only one around here that was present at the 2003 county meeting. And I asked the county several months ago for minutes of that. And in the minutes, it says Libby Whipple, 1824 Water Oak Way, appeared and asked how many homes would be constructed and would commitments made during the rezoning be enforced if a new developer would take over the project. And your attorney, Mr. Taylor, said tonight, commitments provide certainty. Where was the certainty with those commitments? Even if we took those commitments away, like we have to pack in as many homes as possible. We can't even keep it at the current R1, which is higher density than the old R1. And at one point tonight, it was said, if we stuck to the current R1, they could put 56 homes on that property. And I believe you said, well, I know you can't do that, speaking to David from Pulte. Why not? Why not? Why can't we keep higher standards in Avon? I have watched multiple applications tonight be to put more homes, higher density. And it's like, what are we doing? Our schools are crowded. Our traffic problems are not great. And yet, it's like we take the path of least resistance for these 5 statutory requirements to change zoning. It's like, come on, town. Come on, Avon. Let's do better than this. And then we come here, and I thought Mr. Vapor was speaking out of turn when he spoke before the presentation, because how could you speak to something if it had not been presented yet? And you are a deciding body. You are our decision makers. And we didn't get to speak afterwards. Things were changed. New commitments were made. Things were spoken, and yet we could not address that. That does not seem fair. That does not seem fair. Please think about what you're doing for our town and the quality of our town going forward. Please.
I would like to continue, I don't know if I have to say it again, Michelle Logan, 1764 Water Oak Way. I would like to read something on this piece of paper I picked up on the table over there. It says, Avon is a safe, vibrant community for active families and thriving businesses. I don't think anyone who has lived in Avon over the past 5 years would say that is an accurate statement of Avon with your leadership. I have seen this town turn from one of the most beautiful towns I've ever seen that I moved here to houses that are a box. I didn't get to finish earlier, so I just want to say I don't think anybody would agree that the claim after the changes of the last few years, when I moved here, Avon was considered the new Carmel. Absolutely nobody says that anymore. Thanks to builders like Pulte, Avon is now known as a vinyl village off Chicken Strip. That's what you guys have done to Avon. And a lot of it has happened under your leadership. I've seen these new neighborhoods. You can't even tell one house from the next. If I pull in, I go, I don't know which house I'm supposed to go to. 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's no difference. Avon needs a mid-course correction. I was going to ask you to vote no, but you, like Ms. Whipple said, you didn't really care what the townspeople had to say. So I'm going to finish this up with in my opinion. To quote Mr. Pulte, we are track housing. In my opinion, I'm reminded of the scene from Tommy Boy about the box, because that is what he is offering, a track housing box that he marks guaranteed. But we all know what it really is, and that's what you have done to Avon.
Anyone else like to come forward?
Yes, Ron Fraser, 8806 Prairie Trail, Avon. Just in regards to the Briar Woods, I know you've approved it, but I still have concerns in regards to 55 houses in that area. I know it's approved. They're all quite little houses. I will have 3 looking from my back door, looking at 3 of them. My concern is that it's targeted 55 plus. There's 10 odd feet between gutters. These little houses, you don't have a lot of different designs there, and I feel like we're turning into a shack type area. If they're all older people, you're not going to have as many houses and many cars going on to 900. 900 is a nightmare, as you all know. I don't need to talk to that any longer. My concern is, though, it's not 55 plus. It's not guaranteed. You get families in there, more kids, more cars. There's nowhere for those cars to go. It's going to look really ugly. So I do have concern about that when it does come to the planning. I'd like that to be considered, please. That this is a neighbourhood being thrown onto 900. We don't know what to do with that bit of land, so let's just put more houses, throw more cars onto 900. And it is disappointing. I understand it's development, but it's not the Avon I want to live in. Thank you for your time, though.
Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. Tonight, I'm Nathan Logan, 1764 Water Oak Way. I guess I should start by saying, thanks for being here late. Thank you for advocating for at least some of the concessions. To me, it feels like we're kind of begging to get back what we already had. And really, it kind of feels like, well, it could be worse, so maybe. I guess overall, I'm really kind of disappointed by the overall process and the protections that I thought we had as citizens. It doesn't really feel like our voice is much heard about anymore. And obviously, I don't have to reiterate, chicken strip out here on 36 as it's being called now. So, there are several continuations as we went through the planning process that really placed the burden on us. A lot of consideration has been given to the developers. I really don't feel like a lot of that is given to us by even just the lack of responses we get from, emails or other things, except for Mr. Lambie. He was really pleasant to deal with, and I really appreciate it. Although I will say collectively, I had to remind him that about the newer anti-monotony standards and when that plan would apply or whatnot. And, I understand this process is confusing, but overall, just the questions that I see asked and the lack of clarification on things, it seems like this is the main thrust of this body and the other commission, and to not have expertise on some of these simple things of what's being dealt with that doesn't make sense to me. And also, did the Dries representative say, unlike national builders, which would be them, that they're quality over quantity? So I'm not sure what the Dries representative was trying to infer there, but it seems like we're going to get a lot of quantity in our backyard on land that doesn't support it. Once our land's all gone, that's it, right? Like that's how our town's going to look. And it feels like it's being squandered. So this is it though. Once that land's gone, we're going to deal with this, and my family's going to deal with it for, the decades to come. So I'm just overall really disappointed in how our town's shaping up.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the second public comment session and then move on to council comment. Any comments? from council? No comments. We'll move on to council calendar. Ryan?
Yeah, just two things. Just a reminder, April 12th is Heavy Trash Day, so come on, visit out and drop off any of your trash. And your next meeting is April 24th at 7 PM, no work session, so.
Thank you.
I will not be at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.